You know it's this. Take a break and talk it and see. Money swallowed like sis. They done perfected the kid. Got a billion who take on my hate. Nothing better. Put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil they shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the 6th part of What If Naruto Enters Monster Musume, Everyday Life with Monster Girls. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of DJ Unk 101 on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Chi-Chi opened her mouth to reply, before shaking her head and turning back to Sabo-ten, sorry. Please continue. Okay, Sabo-ten seemed a little disappointed by the lack of a response but quickly returned to her previous level of exuberance and continued the story. So Papa worked really strong. To keep costs down, he did a lot of his work himself. It took him ages to build the farm. In this time Mama noticed him but kept her distance, shyly watching from a distance. Like me, Mama was always taught to go to bed early on full moons. Apparently, it's something of a family tradition. The pink slime declared proudly. I have a sneaking suggestion, I know why. Chi-Chi shook her head with a wry smile. So anyway, Sabo-ten paused. After much strong work Papa finished the farm. He had a huge house that he had always dreamed of and a massive farm. By himself, the work was really strong, but he kept at it because a man always follows his dreams and must never give up no matter what. Your dad sounds like a pretty wise guy, Naruto nodded. I'm glad you agree, mister. Sabo-ten beamed at him before resuming her story. But work as strong as he did, Papa got lonely in such a big house and moved into one of his barns. The forge. Chi-Chi nodded. I thought it looked like someone had been living there. She tried not to show her pride that her detective instincts had been correct. Then one day, Sabaton's voice dropped to a dramatic whisper, there was a terrible storm during a full moon, and Mama couldn't get to sleep. She tried to get out of the rain and snuck into the forge and then. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Mama and Papa had a long talk and decided to live together forever. After a few weeks, they decided to call up a number only adults knew and got a stork to deliver me. She beamed happily. What? Naruto blinked. Ah, I think I understand, Chi-Chi smiled. You were born. Yep. Sabo-ten nodded happily. Then Mama, Papa and I all lived together. Mama wasn't fond of the house, so they moved into the caves near the farm. But then all sorts of people came to take Papa's farm, so Mama and Papa had to scare them away. Then one day when Papa said I was a big girl, he went on a long journey with Mama. They told me to keep the farm safe for when they return. I see, Naruto smiled at her. And all this time you've been watching over it for them? Yep. You're a good girl, Naruto rubbed her head, as one would ruffle a smaller child's hair. He. Sabo-ten seemed to enjoy the attention before remembering what was happening. Ah. That's why you have to leave. Chi-Chi. Naruto glanced at the arachne. Any ideas? While it's true that this farm is hers, she cannot be declared as its owner. Article 2A, subsection 3 states that liminals in the program may not own property independently. All purchases must be approved by the handler who then takes joint ownership of the purchase for the duration of the program. Only approved liminals may own property, and it must be within an agreed distance from either a handler or other official exchange representative. Chi-Chi finished. If she isn't part of the program, she won't have a handler to own the property, and I severely doubt she has permission from Ms. Smith to own this farm. See kid, Toph smirked. The copper is trying to justify you losing the farm. You can't trust M. That's not true. Chi-Chi quickly interrupted the grinning toad. I'm just saying it might be strong to convince Agent Smith that this is Sabaton's farm. I won't give in. Sabo-ten looked fired up. I'm going to protect Papa's dream until he comes back. Then we will all protect it together. How about we help you out? Naruto suggested. You would? Sabaton's eyes seemed to widen. You'd be my gang and help me out? You can do that. Is there a way to help Sabo-ten keep her farm? Naruto glanced at Chi-Chi, who fidgeted. If, Chi-Chi stressed the word if she can be entered into the program, then technically, Handler-san could own the property in your name so that should anything happen to him, you won't be forced to leave. See, we can help. Naruto ruffled Sabaton's head again, much to the slime's delight. You must have been pretty lonely by yourself. He chuckled. But just like your papa, you don't have to be alone anymore. You can have a room in this building if you want and we'll all live together. That sounds like so much fun. The pink slime bobbed her head excitedly. Aren't we getting ahead of ourselves? Chi-Chi reminded Naruto. Even if she was born here, she isn't registered in the program. Agent Smith may have to have her detained until they find somewhere to send her. She can try, Toph remarked boastfully. I wanted a rematch against that ogress anyway. Because the 2 times you've tried to fight her have ended so well for you. Chi-Chi deadpanned. Don't worry, Naruto stroked Sabaton's head again, who beamed at the attention. I promise you can stay here. I won't let anyone take you away from your farm. Aniki. Her eyes shimmered as she looked at Naruto in awe. You're awesome, Aniki. Aniki? Naruto blinked. Ah. Papa said that Aniki was what you called a super cool boss. He. Naruto could only laugh weakly and blush. Say Sabaton-chan. How about I help you move out of that cave and into a room in here? We have plenty to choose from. Okay. Sabo-ten beamed. Me and Aniki will protect Papa's farm. I give you my word. Naruto nodded. And I never go back on my word. That's my nindo. My ninja way. Aniki. Sabo-ten had stars in her eyes. You're so cool. Really? Naruto laughed. Well, I am a pretty big deal in my home village. I'll bet. Sabo-ten nodded happily. You must have lots of friends. Naruto smiled wistfully. Yeah. I guess I do. He shook his head and followed Sabo-ten out of the house, a small pang in his chest as he thought about his friends back in his dimension. We'll find a way back, Kurama reassured Naruto. Thanks, Kurama. I know. I get the feeling we've forgotten about something, Toph frowned. Got any ideas, fat butt? It's probably nothing, Chi-Chi frowned. I'm sure it can wait until we've had some rest to deal with. She made her way to her room, tailed by a limping Toph, who couldn't shake the feeling there was something important they were forgetting. Tio's room. Tio blinked sleepily as she stretched out, looking at the clock. Oh, my. I woke up far too early. She picked up the clock, scowling with a cute pout at the hands. It's only 4 a.m. Tio-chan. Manako called out. Manako-chan, Tio rubbed the sleep from her eyes. Why are you in my bed? Did you have a nightmare? And no. Manako stood up. I got an emergency phone call. Emergency? Tio tilted her head cutely. Who from? Uzumaki-san. Manako frowned. He said they had been attacked by a slime monster, but they had everything under control, but he suddenly hung up and I can't get back in touch. Oh no. Tio bit her lip. If the farm is under attack, then the cute bunnies could be in danger. We have to do something. Alright. Manako nodded. I'll go wake up Zambina-chan, and you wake up Doppel-chan, Tio proclaimed. Shouldn't we call Ms. Smith? The mono-eye suggested. We can ring her on the way to the office, Tio declared. Okay. Manako nodded as she ran out of the room to wake up their shape-shifting teammate. Yash. Tio walked over to a large cabinet and quickly threw on her basic MON uniform, lightly slapping her face to wake herself up before leaving her room and locking it behind her, then making her way to the zombie squad mate's room. She knocked on it gently. Zombina-chan. Tio called out, getting no response. We have an emergency. There was a barely audible grumble from the other side of the door. Zombina-chan. Tio knocked harder, causing the door to splinter. Oops. Stood behind the ruined door was a tired-looking Zombina, wearing a loose-fitting shirt that fell below her waist and little else. Several chunks of the door were stuck in her, although she showed no signs of caring or even noticing about the damage to herself. Morning. Zombina blinked slowly as she rubbed the back of her head, apparently not noticing the shards of door stuck into her chest. What's so important that you gotta bust up my door? So sorry, Tio bowed her head apologetically, but Manako-chan says there's an emergency. Huh? Zombina scowled. What's happened? Apparently Uzumaki-san is in danger, Tio exclaimed. Seriously? Zombina grinned widely. Something can give him trouble. Ha, that sounds awesome. She vanished into her room and quickly returned wearing a camo bandana, a green vest top and cargo pants. Let's go hunting. The two MON agents headed to the front door where a pale Manako and a smirking Doppel were waiting for them. What's up with her? Zombina jerked her head at the spaced-out mono-eye. She saw my true form, Doppel shrugged. That's what you get for waking me up so DMN late. Technically is early, Tio happily chirped. Come on you, Zombina grabbed Manako. Let's move out. Who's driving? Doppel asked as they walked down the hallways of the apartment complex. The team were making their way towards the car park where a large black SUV awaited them. As expected of a vehicle designed for Mon's use, it had been specially designed to allow Tio to fit in it, although admittedly this was by cutting a small hole in the roof so she could sit down without curling into a ball. I'll do it. Zombina proudly declared. Any other takers? Doppel asked weakly as Zombina produced the keys from her cargo pants. Please. Ms. Smith's apartment. The small apartment was silent as a grave, discarded clothes littered the floor, and dirty coffee cups covered most of the surfaces. The only noise was the occasional gentle drip of water from a leaky faucet, dripping into the sink, full of dirty plates. In one corner of the room, Kuriko Smith was laid on top of her bed, halfway through getting undressed after another long day. Her shirt was unbuttoned but still on, and her trousers were around her ankles. She was snoring softly when the silence was suddenly broken by her phone ringing on the desk next to her bed. Wah! She mumbled as she answered the phone. Watch out for that tree. A hysterical voice cried out over the phone. It took Smith a few moments to realize it was Manako. Neko? Smith rubbed her eyes and sat up in her bed. Sorry for waking you up. I got an emergency call from Uzumaki-san. He'll be fine, Smith yawned. But he was on the phone when it suddenly disconnected, and... For the love of all things holy. The lamppost. Zombina-chan driving? Smith smirked. Did you try calling him back? The phone wouldn't connect. Smith frowned. That does sound serious. She opened the drawer of her bedside table, revealing her handgun and several magazines of ammunition, mostly the non-lethal tranquilizers she carried. She expertly loaded the handgun, cocking it with a grim frown. I'll meet you at the offices to get tooled up. Nothing get between me and my free meal ticket. Okay. Oh, no, look out for that. There was a click and the phone disconnected. I'm sure they're fine. Smith picked up her sunglasses, buttoning her clothes up and glancing at the clock. 4 a.m. Servant Kun owes me one hell of a meal for this. Sometime later, Naruto's farm. Naruto groaned as he woke up, the sunlight shining through the gaps in the barricades that Toph and Chi-Chi had hastily set up the previous night. Glancing at the alarm clock that was bleeping noisily next to his bed, he realized he had overslept. 6 a.m. He rubbed the back of his head. I guess I should start making breakfast. The last thing I need is a moody Toph causing a ruckus because there's nothing to eat. He rolled over and sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing the sleep from his eyes and casting a glance around his mostly empty room. Besides the king-size bed with bright orange bed sheets, the only other furnishings he had were a large wardrobe, with no clothes in it, and a small set of drawers, also empty. The few items of clothes he had were folded haphazardly over the edge of the bed, having been quickly cleaned before he went to bed. Sighing as he picked them up, he put them on, then summoned a clone to make breakfast and left his room to head towards the bathroom. He paused outside as he heard scrubbing. Hello. He knocked on the door, not getting a response. When he tried it, he found it opened and there was a soft humming noise from inside. Hello. He repeated a little louder. Aniki? Come on in. Sabaton-chan. Naruto paused. Are you dressed? Yup. Her cheery voice echoed in the room. Papa said I should stay fully dressed at all times while I'm within throwing distance of a boy, and Papa could throw a stone really far. Right, Naruto smiled softly as he stepped inside to see Sabaton strong at work. She was still wearing the same clothes as yesterday, with added RBB gloves as she scrubbed the floor with a sponge. What are you doing? I wanted to apologize for trying to scare you all away. She looked at her feet. You seem like really cool people, and I don't think you want to hurt me or Papa's dream. So I'll help you maintain the house for when Papa comes back. You're a good girl. Naruto ruffled the top of Sabaton's head, resulting in the slime girl beaming joyfully. I'll just get a shower, okay? Okay. Sabaton stood up. I'll go make breakfast. She declared. That's fine, I'm making it right now. Naruto smiled. But, you're getting a shower. Sabaton's face clearly showed her confusion. You'll see if you head to the kitchen, Naruto replied mysteriously, and the curious slime girl headed to the kitchen and saw an identical Naruto strong at work. But you were just in the bathroom. The pink slime's green eyes widened comically. Huh? The clone noticed the young girl. Oh hey, Sabaton-chan. I'm a clone. The boss was the one that you spoke to in the shower. Clone. Sabaton tilted her head cutely. Yup, the clone nodded, the boss can make plenty of us. Wow. Sabaton's eyes widened, Aniki is so cool. WL, the clone smiled smugly. I guess it is a pretty impressive. What would you like to eat? Sabaton looked thoughtful. In the forest, I ate whatever fruits I could. Mama said I could eat anything as I just dissolve it inside of me. She rubbed her stomach. That makes things easy, the clone chuckled. So what were your parents like? You've said a fair bit about your dad but not much about your mother. Mama was a pink slime like me. Sabaton smiled, although she was much goopier. Goopy. Sabaton nodded happily as she clambered onto a stool to watch the clone at work. She couldn't wear heavy clothes as they just sank into her. Mama used to say she was envious of my slime because I can wear pretty clothes. She kicked her legs idly. But Mama was so pretty and kind. I miss her a lot. I see. The clone chuckled as started to butter some toast. Did your parents say how long they were going to go away for? Nope, Sabaton slumped a little, they just said they were going on a grand adventure that would be too dangerous for me and that they were counting on me to look after the farm. Well, the clone smiled reassuringly at her, you don't have to worry about looking after this farm by yourself anymore. Right. Sabaton brightened up. It's going to be so much fun. Will you check on the others for me? The clone asked. Maybe apologize for your actions yesterday. Okay. Sabo-ten cheerfully pushed herself off of the stool and hopped out of the room, whistling cheerfully as she made her way out of the kitchen and up the stairs towards the others' rooms. Her first stop was Chi-Chi's room, who opened the door when she knocked on it. She had bags under her eyes and was clutching her ribs with a grimace. The only article of clothing that she was wearing was a long shirt that fell below the bottom of her humanoid body and covered everything that it needed to. Sabo-ten was vaguely aware of some barricade set up in her window but thought nothing of it. After all, most of the windows seemed to have barricades on it, and they did talk about some big slime monster that attacked them. Morning. Sabo-ten chirped cheerfully. Aniki's clone asked me to check on you. Also, I am very, very sorry about trying to scare you all away. She bowed her head. I didn't mean to upset anybody. I just wanted to protect Papa's dream. You can call me Sabo-ten. She beamed, finishing her introduction with a curtsy. Don't worry about it, Sabaton-chan, Chi-Chi smiled softly. My name is Chi-Chi, pleased to meet you. She smiled and reached towards the girl to ruffle her head like Naruto had but suddenly flinched and clutched her side again. Oh no. You are hurt. Sabo-ten noticed the bandages that were wrapped around her chest. Who did that? I'm perfectly fine, so don't worry. Is breakfast ready? The long-legged type smiled. Ah, Aniki's clone is making it now. The slime girl nodded happily. Do you want to come in? Chi-Chi stepped aside, allowing Sabo-ten to notice the ordered and tidy room behind her. No thank you, she shook her head, the black hair like slime waving in time to her movements. Papa said I should never go into a room with coppers because they'll beat you up and make you confess to stuff that you never did. I promise you that I've no intention of doing that, Chi-Chi laughed weakly. But Papa wouldn't lie about something like that. Sabo-ten frowned and crossed her arms. You are trying to make Papa into a villain. That. I'm not. Chi-Chi weakly protested. Maybe. Maybe your dad had a run-in with a bad officer. He warned you that some, boss, people were bad, but he was one and a good guy, right? Well, that is true. Sabo-ten looked thoughtful. So I guess there could be a police officer who wasn't a big meanie face. Alright, Chi-Chi smiled as the slime girl looked thoughtful. The image of the young girl looking so thoughtful brought a smile to the arachne's face. She seems so pure and innocent. It makes me want to protect her. Okay. Sabo-ten suddenly exclaimed. If you're part of Aniki's family you must be a good person. Thanks, Chi-Chi smiled, for giving me a chance. You're welcome. Sabo-ten chirped happily before turning around and skipping down the hallway to the next room which held the toad-type bullywug. Without a care in the world, Sabo-ten knocked loudly on the door and was answered with an incomprehensible groan. Hello. When Sabo-ten tried the door, it opened, silently, and she slowly stepped inside. The room was a bomb site. As usual, dirty clothes were thrown onto piles on the floor and Toph herself lying face down on the bed, the bedding and duvet barely on the bed. Her hat was on one of the bedposts and her jacket on the other. The bandages that usually adorned her chest was thrown to the side, leaving her dressed in only some boxers. As with Chi-Chi's room, the windows were barricaded and only a thin beam of light from the morning sun shone through the window. A rat poked its head out of the jacket pocket, looking critically at the slime girl before curling back up to go back to sleep. Are you awake? She leaned forward to wake up the toad type. The half-asleep Toph caught the sight of the pink slime girl reaching out for her and instinctively moved to defend herself. She rolled out of her bed, grabbing the bakudo that was perched on her bed and hurling it at the surprised girl, who watched confused as the sword stuck into her jelly-like body, sticking in her midriff that had been exposed when she stretched forwards. Wanna another go, do ya? Eh? She tilted her head confused. Are you okay, Nei-chan? Toph flinched. Don't call me that, you hear? She angrily glared at the new arrival, trying to ignore the pang of guilt she felt at snapping at the young girl. And don't sneak up on me like that. You lucky I held back. Ah, sorry. Sabaton's eyes started to waver like they were watering, and her bottom lip started to tremble. Geez, no need for the waterworks, Toph grumbled under her breath before addressing the young girl in a louder voice. Sorry 'bout that. Didn't mean to yell. It's okay. Saboten cheered up instantly. I'm sorry for interrupting your sleep. Mama and Papa didn't like me waking them up when they were all cuddly together in the morning. Papa wasn't usually wearing his clothes then as well. Well, now you know, Toph stretched out. Could you give me my blade back? My name is Saboten, and I'm sorry for any trouble I caused you all yesterday. She bowed her head and pulled the bakuto from her body. This is so cool. Heh, Toph rubbed the back of her head. Thanks. The name's Toph, by the way. The toad type hopped out of bed, landing with a strangled cry of pain. Are you alright? Saboten hurried over to Toph's side. It's nothing. I just slept funny on my ankle. Toph found herself unable to blame the girl for injuring her. She was just so DMN adorable that even the skeptical bullywug was unable to bring herself to hate the girl. Maybe the boss was right, and on a full moon she becomes some sort of berserker or something. There's no way this little gel would be able to defeat the mighty Toph-sama. Okay. Saboten bowed, her hair bobbing in time with her actions. I hope you can teach me lots about being cool like you. Well, I might have time, I guess. Toph puffed her chest out proudly. Still, this is my gang, you hear? If you try and hurt anyone, you're gonna have to answer to me. You understand? Okay. Saboten bowed her head. Good. Toph hobbled over to her bed. Now get out of here, will ya? Alright. Saboten quickly fled the room, approaching the last resident's room and taking a deep breath before knocking. You may enter. A cold voice that sent shivers down Sabaton's back answered. Taking a deep breath, she pushed the door open and paused at what she saw. Of the 3 rooms, Kagaya's was the most striking, if only for the fact it was full of cute little bunny rabbits that all turned to face the young slime as she entered, only to hop under the bed. Sat amongst them, with the air of a queen, was Kagaya herself, kneeling on the floor and writing something using a brush and ink. She had an air of concentration as if the task before her required all of her focus to complete. Saboten edged into the room to get a better look at the third and final non-human member of the household. The former goddess was fully dressed in a slightly tattered kimono with one of the sleeves rolled up slightly to reveal a pale hand holding the brush while the other sleeve hung empty. Unlike the other residents, there were no obvious signs of fatigue, although the shakiness of her hand as she drew could be accredited to a lack of sleep. Perched on her shoulder was a bunny that turned to look at her, before twitching its nose and jumping from Kagaya's shoulder, joining its fellow rabbits underneath the bed. Air. Hi, Saboten squeaked nervously. Oh, it's you. Kagaya looked over her shoulder at the slime girl. Do you have a reason for disturbing me? Come to finish the job? Sorry, the gelatinous girl bowed her head. I didn't mean to cause you any trouble yesterday. And my name is Saboten, and I hope we can be friends. Friends? Kagaya laid down the brush and stood up. I assume by the fact you are walking unaccompanied that my servant has deemed you trustworthy. Servant? Saboten blinked. The blonde human. Oh, Aniki. The young girl's head bobbed up and down. He told me to introduce myself and apologize for the trouble I caused. So you admit to the fact you assaulted me? That wasn't me. Saboten shook her head. Honest. Kagaya's glacial gaze caused the girl to shiver, like a deer stuck in the headlights of a rapidly approaching car. After an uncomfortably long time, Kagaya let out a sigh and got to her feet and walked towards her. Air. Miss. Sabo-ten shivered at the glare she received and stood aside as Kagaya walked out of the room and down the hallway without a further word, pausing after walking a few steps past the scared slime. My name is Kagaya. I am a former goddess and current noble lord of this household, and you will address me as such. She called over her shoulder. Hi Suki no Usagi-hime-sama, Sabo-ten stammered. You are a curious one, aren't you? Kagaya's lips pursed. Still, my servant, whilst mostly useless, is not entirely incompetent. I will trust his judgment in your case. Do not disappoint me. I won't. I promise you. Thank you, Suki no. Kagaya-hime will suffice. Alright Kagaya-hime-sama. If only the others were as respectful as you. Kagaya sighed as Toph stepped out of her room, limping slightly. What are you looking at, bunny hag? The toad type narrowed her eyes. Something that is ruining my appetite, Kagaya remarked. I shall be down for breakfast momentarily. I need to clean my face first. Tell my servant to have my meal ready for me. Tell him yourself, DMN it, Toph grumbled as she walked down the hallway. Sabo-ten walked down the hallway, stopping only to dart inside her room. It was sparsely decorated, with only the picture of her with her papa on the bedside table and a dirty blanket which she picked up before heading back downstairs to the kitchen where Naruto and Toph were eating breakfast. Aniki. Sabo-ten ran up to Naruto, who she guessed was the real one due to his damp hair. I'm sorry for stealing this. She held the blanket out to Naruto, who accepted it with a soft smile. Thanks, he ruffled her hair slime before putting the blanket to one side as Sabo-ten sat at the table next to him. While Toph wasn't saying anything, she kept shooting the young girl looks that weren't hostile but weren't friendly either. She subconsciously found herself sliding along the seat to get closer to Naruto, who noticed but decided against saying anything, instead giving Toph a look to which the toad type scoffed and focused on her breakfast. Convenient that she isn't leaving that trail anymore. Kurama remarked. I imagine that saves you some work. Yeah. It would be a pain cleaning up after her, and you just know that Kagaya would complain about it. It's as if Sabaton's full moon form and her normal form at two completely different people with different slime makeup. Yeah. Speaking of which, do you have any plans in place for the next time we have a full moon? While seeing Kagaya get her comeuppance would be funny, I could do without having to save you every full moon. I'll think of something, I always do. Naruto promised, ignoring Kurama's snort of laughter. So. You mentioned that building this farm was your father's dream? Yep. Sabo-ten brightened again at the opportunity to talk about her beloved father. He wanted to make a big farm and make lots of people happy by making food for them all. He told me he wanted to have cows for milk and chickens for eggs and goats for. Sabo-ten paused. Papa wasn't sure why he needed goats but said a proper farm has to have them. He was planning to grow all sorts of things like fruit, so I could grow big and strong and plenty of rice because it is the staple of a true Japanese diet. Papa was going to make lots of sake as well, but never got around to learning how it was made. He had big plans, didn't he? Naruto smiled. Yup. But he was gonna do it. Papa could do anything. Sabo-ten declared. How about we get it up and running for him? Naruto suggested. You do that? The pink slime's face lit up. For real? For real, Naruto nodded. I mean, thanks to my clones we don't really have to worry about manpower. You are just like Papa. So cool. Sabo-ten beamed at him. Oh well. I wouldn't go that far, Naruto grinned stupidly as Sabo-ten sang his praises. This is going to be awesome. Sabo-ten cheered. Papa will be so proud when he comes back. If he comes back. Toph interrupted. Let's be honest here. It sounds like you got dumped, kid. What do you mean? Sabo-ten looked unsure. Your parents decided they'd had enough and left you behind. It happens. No. Papa and Mama loved me. They wouldn't do that. Sabo-ten looked on the verge of tears. I'm sure they didn't, Naruto comforted Sabo-ten while signaling at Toph to shut up. What? You don't need parents, kiddo. You got us now. Toph shrugged, not getting why Naruto was getting annoyed with her. Naruto found himself wishing for a distraction as Sabo-ten was looking downcast and Toph was also in a bad mood. Unfortunately, his wish was granted when the back door of the kitchen flew off of its hinges and struck Toph off of her chair. What the hell? Toph yelled as she struggled to her feet. You. Naruto, with Sabo-ten clinging to him like a life raft, got out of his seat to face the new arrival. Oh hey, Tio-chan. He nodded at the armored behemoth stood where the door to the kitchen used to be. She was flanked by Zambina and Doppel, with Smith and Manako visible behind them. Uzumaki-san. Tio beamed at him as she removed her armored helmet. I'm sorry about the door, but we were worried that you were in trouble. Hey Tio-chan, Doppel hissed in her ear as the rest of Moen entered the kitchen. Weren't you going to try and rebuff Uzumaki-san's affections? Oh, Tio blinked. That's right. I mean, I'm not sorry about that door, and I definitely wasn't worried about you. While that was subtle, Zambina rolled her eyes while Doppel struggled not to laugh. You what? Toph pointed the bakudo at Tio. So you did try and hit me on purpose. Tio floundered panicking. Alright. Then. You want round 2, I'll bring it. Toph declared, leaping off of her chair and landed on her bad ankle, causing her to yelp in pain and fall over. DDMN it. If you hadn't carried out that sneak attack with the door, I would kick your butt. Sorry, Tio's shoulders slumped. Well. Considering I got woken up at 4 a.m. to respond to a crisis, I have to admit I was expecting to see someone dead. Smith took her sunglasses off and cleaned them. So what was so important that you had to call the emergency line? Oh well, Naruto gestured to Sabo-ten who was poking her head out from behind him, we found Sabaton-chan here. Oh. Tio's eyes lit up as Sabo-ten stepped out. You look so cute. And that's the emergency? Smith sighed. Well, things got a little hectic, Naruto responded vaguely. But I reported that it wasn't an emergency as such to Shino-san. To who? Smith blinked. That doesn't matter. Manako interrupted. Well. Smith decided against following up. Seeing as we're all here anyway, I think it is only fair that you make us all breakfast. How'd I guess that this conversation would end up with you getting a free meal? Naruto sighed heavily and headed back into the kitchen, followed by Sabo-ten. Shino. Smith glanced at Manako who went bright crimson. I panicked when I heard his voice, Manako mumbled. I thought he might be mad because of the prank that I helped Zambina-chan and Doppel-chan pull on him. You're just too precious sometimes, Smith chuckled fondly as Naruto returned with several plates of toast. I've got some clones working on the food. Naruto put down the food he was carrying as another clone came out with some coffee for Smith. Here, Smith handed him another card. This is your out-of-hours non-emergency number, okay? If you have another incident like this one, use this number instead. Wait a minute, that's my number. Zambina exclaimed as she looked at the card. Oh, is it? Smith smiled innocently, causing everyone, bar Toph and Zambina, to laugh. Still, we need to decide what to do about Sabaton-chan here. I'm afraid that as an unregistered liminal I have to arrange for her to be taken away and deported back to her home. This is my papa's farm and it is my home. I don't want to leave. She declared. Aniki said he would let me stay and we'll run the farm together. That's a big promise you made, Smith looked at Naruto. Well, it is her home, Naruto rubbed the back of his head. I couldn't just kick her out, could I? But I am the one who will have to deal with the paperwork for it all, she sighed dramatically. I'll tell you what. I'll make you an offer you can't refuse. Yes. Sabo-ten clasped her hands together. You make me larger meals whenever I'm here. Smith took a sip of coffee. That's it? Naruto blinked. Of course I'll do that for you. Then I'll sort out the paperwork for Sabaton-chan for you. Smith nodded. Yippee. Sabo-ten jumped up. I can stay. The mafia boss said so. Mafia boss. Smith blinked. Well, you wear a suit, and you have big strong goons, and you make people offers they can't refuse. Sabo-ten blinked. Papa said those are the traits of a mafia boss. I'm a government agent, Smith corrected before returning her attention to Naruto. I'll have to fill in a new species form for the exchange program as I don't think any slimes have ever joined the program. Smith nursed her coffee, but I'm sure that won't be too strong to do. Prepare to be surprised, Doppel smirked. What do you mean? Smith glanced at the shapeshifter. I had to fill in those forms myself as I was the first of my kind to join the program. Doppel shivered. All that paperwork. There was so much. You're such a drama queen, Smith remarked dryly. Let me enjoy my victory, will you? Don't say I didn't warn you. While Smith was savoring her victory, Naruto was finding some difficulty in talking to Tio. For some reason, the ogress refused to look at him and spoke only in short, curt sentences. Do you want something else to eat? Naruto suggested. Maybe. Tio looked away from him. Kurama. Did I do something wrong? Probably, but hell if I know what it was, Kurama replied, his voice making it clear he was disinterested. Have I upset you in some way? Naruto looked down. Ah. No, that isn't it. Tio bit her lip. No, Tio-chan. You have to been mean to him. He has a crush on you, and it wouldn't work out, so this is the kind thing to do. Doppel-chan said so. Well. If I have, I'm sorry, he smiled sadly at her. I would never intentionally upset someone as nice you. That's nice to know, Tio stared intently at her plate. I'm sorry, Uzumaki-san. This is for your own good. Still. It is nice to be fawned over like this. No. Bad Tio. She started shaking her head furiously. This is like a train wreck, Zambina glanced at Doppel. I don't get it, why is she trying to be distant and aloof? Oh, I may have made her think that Uzumaki-san has a crush on her, Doppel smirked. And she may be under the impression that the only outcome of him having said crush is Uzumaki-san getting himself arrested for violating the law. Therefore the best thing would be to get him to stop having a crush on her by acting distant and cold. Does she realize she is practically impossible to hate, and when people see her upset and they instinctively want to try and help her out? Zambina asked. Apparently not, Doppel chuckled. Do you want me to cook you a different meal? Maybe some desserts? Naruto offered. And no. Tio shook her head. I have to be strong. Fortunately for Tio, she was saved by a tranquilizer dart hitting Naruto in the neck. Hey! I warned you about trying to stuck Tio away from my team. Smith fired another tranquilizer into Naruto for good measure. Why is there such a racket in my household? Kaguya entered the kitchen yawning. Oh. She noticed Tio. I see the uncultured ogre is here, and... Her gaze stopped on the naked Doppel, who waved cheerfully at her. Why, you are naked? Well, clothes don't feel right on me, Doppel shrugged. I like to feel the air on my body. She stretched out seductively. How shameless. Have you no class? Kaguya diverted her gaze. Only a babe under the age of a year can be excused for NDTY. What? You scared of a little skin? Doppel smirked. No matter what class one resides in, you wear clothes to protect your modesty. Kaguya went to sit down next to Naruto, then noticed Sabo-ten and chose to sit on the opposite side of the table. I don't know, I think being NDE would be better than walking around in those rags, Doppel countered. Our rags. These were made by the finest weaver in all my kingdom. She paused as she looked at the damage her kimono had taken. Still, if I had something to change into I would. I find myself extremely limited when it comes to clothing. Yeah, we are a bit short on clothing. All I have is this outfit, Naruto frowned. And even then I'm missing the jacket. I'll get that right to you, Doppel grinned. It just needs some cleaning first. Oh, you didn't have to clean it, Naruto rubbed the back of his head. Oh, don't worry. It's my pleasure. Doppel smiled disarmingly. She's planning something, isn't she? Smith leant over to Zambina, who nodded. Probably, she hasn't gotten over the fact her attempts to prank Uzumaki-san failed miserably. Zambina nodded. Well, it's none of my business, Smith finished her coffee and gave a content sigh. I'll need to write you up a permit so you all can go shopping for new clothes. I'll try. And divert some funds your way as well, as I guess most of the budget this month has been spent on food, the coordinator returned her attention to Naruto. We've not even been here a week, and you've eaten most of our food, Naruto deadpanned. Details. Smith smiled, and while I'm at it I'll need to ask Sabaton-chan a few questions for her application, so we might as well do that on the same day. Sabaton bowed her head. I mean no disrespect Don Smith, but would I be able to take Aniki with me? Don Smith? Smith blinked. I told you I'm not a mafia boss, but sure. I have no objections to Servant Kun coming along. He can make clones to keep the others in check. She paused and glanced at her empty coffee. On that note, maybe you could get some clones to WHP up another batch of coffee? Naruto summoned a few clones with a chuckle as everyone finished up their breakfasts. You know. While I have to use a fair few clones, I do enjoy these lively breakfasts. I'll bet this is what it's like to have a family. He sighed as Toph challenged Tio to arm wrestling. They are loud and cause a mess, but I think I'm glad to be able to do this. Are you having second thoughts about going back home? No. Of course not. Still, I'll miss this when I'm back in Konoha. I wonder what's going on there right now. Hey, Uzumaki-san. Zambina grinned. That was a pretty good breakfast. Here, let me shake you by the hand. Huh? Naruto blinked. Sure, I guess. He reached out for Zambina's hand only to blink stupidly as it fell off of her arm. What did you do? Zambina gasped. Wow, Aniki is so strong. Sabaton declared. Yeah. I guess I am. Naruto looked at the limb in surprise. Not the reaction I was going for. Zambina sighed. Much later on. I regret everything. Smith took a sip of coffee as she regarded the mountain of paperwork that now cluttered her desk. Apparently Doppel wasn't lying. She put the empty coffee cup down and rubbed her forehead as she continued filling in the forms. That's it. This is the last time I do this for anyone. She declared. Next time I meet a strange slime or whatever, I'm going to pretend it doesn't exist. Never again. Smith slammed her fist on the desk, causing the paperwork to fall off of her desk. Why me? She glanced at her phone. Maybe the others can help. She dialed Manako's number as she was the most likely to answer and waited until the line went dead. Everything okay there? A caretaker walked past her desk. My life is an eternal torment, Smith replied bluntly. Sounds good. I'll leave you to your work. The man waved as he continued on his way. The things I do. Smith dialed the number again. Please pick up the phone. She pleaded. Mon's apartment complex. Manako glanced at her phone guiltily as it started to ring again and reached to pick it up. The MON squad had been given the day off thanks to the early morning emergency call from Naruto and were spending it just relaxing in Tio's room dressed in the pajamas. There were several pizza boxes open and various drinks on a small table where Doppel was sitting. Zambina was laying on the floor wearing a large shirt with the picture of a man with a chainsaw hand and a shotgun that fell below her waist. She was watching some horror film that Manako wasn't keen on with Tio was sat next to them in her usual bedtime lingerie with a pink dressing gown over the top of it. She was peering from behind her stuffed rabbit to watch the show, hiding every time the show got a little tense. "Who is it?" Doppel asked as she helped herself to another slice of pizza. "It's Smith-san," the mono-eye went to answer the phone. "Don't answer it," Zambina shook her head. "This is her punishment." "Punishment?" Manako frowned softly. "Yup," the zombie nodded with an evil grin. "When you think about it, she's the reason we, that is Doppel and me, accidentally pranked the wrong person. Uzumaki-san was innocent." "Well, that's true." Manako accepted as the phone died. "Plus, she gave Uzumaki-san your number and woke you up. It should have been her that had to deal with that. She's the coordinator, not you." Zambina opened a can of beer and took a sip. "She needs to learn that she can't just drop all her strong work on us." Zambina's phone started to ring. "Hang on a sec," she put her phone on silent. "This show is getting to the good bit." Good bit?" Tio peeked out from behind her rabbit. "Yeah, the murderer tracks down the two girls and cuts them in half. It's got really good CGI." Zambina took another sip of the drink. Tio merely shivered and hid behind the rabbit again. "But what if it's something serious?" Manako bit her lip as Tio's phone started to ring, scaring the life out of the ogress and causing her to run out of the room screaming, only for her to return several moments later blushing heavily. "I can guarantee that she's just struggling with the new species paperwork." Doppel waved her half-eaten pizza slice at Manako. "It took me about a month to get my papers finalized. Admittedly, I wasn't in a rush to do so. Knowing Smith, she probably thought she could hammer it out in a couple of days on top of all of her other work." Manako's phone started to ring again. "Man, she's desperate for help," Doppel chuckled. "Ah. It isn't Smith-san." Manako bit her lip. "It's Uzumaki-san. Servant-kun." Doppel mimicked Smith. "I wonder what he wants. And maybe there's an emergency." The mono-eye turned to Zambina worried. "Yeah, maybe he's been attacked by a cute lil puppy liminal this time," the zombie laughed. "Seriously, though. Did you get a good look at the girl? She was like a punk schoolgirl or something." "She was cute," Tio agreed, happy to focus on something that wasn't the horror movie. "Like the cute little sister I never knew I wanted. Maybe you should take Uzumaki-kun up on his offer of moving in then." Doppel teased the giantess. "He was all over you today." "Geez," she pouted adorably. "I was trying so strong to make him lose interest." Hello," Manako spoke in a low voice, earning a curious look from the rest of MON, Asada Shino speaking. Doppel grinned evilly and took the phone from Manako, pressing the speakerphone button before handing it back to Manako. "Oh hey, it's me again." Naruto's voice sounded pretty cheerful. "I was just ringing to apologize if you got into any trouble today. I didn't mean to worry you." "Don't worry about it," Manako bit her lip nervously. "Still, thanks for sending Smith and her friends to check on us. I appreciate it. Ask him what he thinks of Tio," Doppel mouthed. Manako gulped. "Were there any members of the team that stood out to you?" Naruto's voice sounded confused. "Well, I guess there is Tio-chan. She seemed to get along with Sabaton-chan." Tio hid behind her bunny as Doppel and Zambina gave her knowing looks. Not to mention Zambina-chan kind of left an impression with her disassembly trick. Then there was that sniper girl I remember from the top of the building. Manako was it? Oh. Manako squeaked before clearing her throat and trying again. And what did you think of her? I get the feeling I upset her or something. She kept avoiding my gaze and was really quiet. Maybe she just doesn't like me. Kind of a shame really, I'll bet she's a cool person to know. WL. Manako wasn't sure how to respond. Come to think of it, I remember Tio was a little cold to me as well. I guess I must have done something to offend her too. Maybe it's because they got woken up. To answer a non-emergency. Could you pass on an apology to them from me? Will do. The mono-I nodded, not that Naruto could see that. Great. Thanks again for your help, Shino-san. Bye. Bye. The phone disconnected. Doppel nodded. It's worse than I thought. Worse? Manako glanced at Tio, who looked as lost as her. Yup, Zombina drained the can and crushed it against her forehead. He clearly has it bad. Has it bad? Tio echoed. He's a liminal file, Doppel finished. He has no interest in human girls. He didn't even mention Smith once. That's true, Manako blinked. Then again he didn't mention you, Zombina patted Doppel on the shoulder in a patronizing manner. I'm sure one day you'll be able to attract a guy or girl. You do look like a kid with that figure. He probably views you as a child, that's why he gave you that coat. I can change my appearance at will, Doppel remarked bluntly. So can I. Zombina grinned. Just need to find the parts. But you still need stitching together like Frankenstein's monster. The shapeshifter smirked. I'm a perfect recreation of whoever I want to be. But your real form is terrifying, Zombina paused. And that's coming from someone who loves gory horror movies. Everyone knows it's what's on the inside that counts. Doppel grabbed another slice of pizza, and all that's inside you is a rotten brain from all that yaoi you read. I read them for the heart-wrenching stories first. Hot gay action second, Zombina smirked. Zombina-chan. Tio and Manako. Ooh, this is the best part. Zombina pointed back to the horror movie as the film turned violent, with the murderer catching his next victim. The brutal scenes caused Manako to look away and Tio to scream and grab the nearest thing to hide behind. Unfortunately, this was Manako. The mono-eye was nearly suffocating from Tio's iron grasp and resulting in the girls trying to calm the ogre down and pry the swirly-eyed cyclops free. Meanwhile, the phone started to ring, the caller ID displaying Smith's name and number, but it went unnoticed as the girls calmed down. Naruto took a deep breath, enjoying the early morning air as he leaned against one of the fences separating the fields on the farm. Smith and Moen had left after eating their fill and Smith promised to have a pass that would let them go into the city ready by tomorrow morning. Until then, Naruto and Kagaya would have to make do with the clothes they brought with them, sans a jacket in the blonde ninja's case. Shaking his head, he turned his attention to the bright pink gelatinous girl who was looking at him with hopeful enthusiasm. So, Naruto looked around eagerly. It's time to get started. He returned his attention to the farmlands. While his clones had removed most of the debris, there was still a lot of weeds and general maintenance to be done. Right. Sabo-ten nodded eagerly. Let's go. She cried out as she punched the air, only for the ninja to remain stationary whilst she continued her energetic dance. Right. Naruto paused. Air. Do you know what I need to do? He fidgeted awkwardly as the youthful slime paused in her animated hopping to look at him with a bright smile, her emerald eyes sparkling with passion. Of course, Sabo-ten beamed as she rooted around in her jacket. Papa left strict, detailed instructions on how the farm should look. He never finished it before he went on his long journey, but he left them with me just in case. She opened the coat, frowning slightly as she searched for the elusive plans. Detailed instructions. Naruto sighed in relief. Given his somewhat limited experience of farming, he was glad to have a set of blueprints to work from. This shouldn't be too strong then. Here you go, Aniki. Sabo-ten produced a filthy handkerchief that the Jinchuriki accepted carefully, holding it by a corner. Is this some sort of modern art? Kurama deadpanned as Naruto tried to decipher the blobs and scrawls on the cloth. Air. Naruto grabbed a corner in each hand and held it up. Well. It's definitely, Naruto trailed off as he looked at what could charitably be called a plan. What is this spot? He pointed to a small circle with barely legible handwriting underneath it. The rice paddy, of course. Sabo-ten declared proudly. Papa always said rice is the one true Japanese CRP. Plus it makes sake, which all of Papa's friends really liked, and he liked making his friends happy. Air. Naruto looked around at the unploughed fields. Well, how about this bit here? Ah, that is the hops fields and the potato fields. Sabo-ten chirped happily. Papa always wanted to go into brewing. He said something about moonshine. I like moonshine. It's so pretty. Ah. Naruto blinked. Well, I guess potatoes shouldn't be too strong to grow. He tried to ignore Kurama's chuckles and focused on what vaguely resembled a doodle of a farm. That's what Papa always said. The pink slime nodded her head happily, her pseudopod bouncing happily in time with her movements. She moved close to Naruto, joining him in looking at the dirty cloth. Alright. Naruto blinked. What's this skull and crossbones symbol? He pointed to a small circle with the pirate-like symbol that was located next to a square blob that says, forge for forging stuff, I guess. That's the compost heap for Papa to put all the dead waste. Sabo-ten nodded. He said he was expecting to compost a lot of things that wanted to cause trouble for him. If she understood the implications of what she was saying, her cheerful demeanor hid it completely. That sounds worrying. Naruto laughed awkwardly, although Sabo-ten seemed not to notice. He had to get rid of the competition somehow. Kurama seemed amused by the situation. Let's hope he doesn't mind his daughter living with a stranger, or else he might try to put you in there. And this? Naruto pointed to a green stain, while his foxy tenant laughed. Ah. That's a boogie, Sabo-ten blinked. This is also Papa's handkerchief. Ah, Naruto handed the dirty cloth back to the girl quickly. So. He paused awkwardly, all too aware of Sabaton's cheerful gaze locked onto him. Are there any changes that? No. Sabo-ten shook her head furiously, causing Naruto to step back, lest her pseudopod hit him. It has to be just like Papa wanted. He'll be so proud when he gets back home. Right, Naruto bit his lip. These plans are pretty vague. Maybe your father would be even more proud if you were able to personalize them. He glanced at the young girl, trying to judge from her expression what she thought of the idea. For her part, Sabo-ten had screwed her face up in thought, which looked more cute than serious to the dimensionally displaced ninja. Well, Papa did used to mention things that he never put on the plan. Sabo-ten tapped her chin. I wonder if Papa would be alright with me making changes to his super detailed plans. She tilted her head. Yeah, I think he'd be okay with that, as long as it was me doing it. You talk a lot about your father, Naruto chuckled. But not so much about your mother. What was she like? Mama? Sabo-ten tilted her head. Mama is Mama. Her head tilted to one side. What would you like to know about her? What kind of person was she? The blonde ninja smiled at the smaller slime, who leaned against a fence as she thought. Mama is super kind and huggy. She used to hug Papa a lot when they were here. Sabo-ten stared off at the forest distantly. She was so pretty and gloopy. Gloopy. Naruto blinked. Aha. Sabo-ten hopped around, her arms behind her back, like when Papa put his clothes on her, they just sunk through her. Mama said she was jealous of my visco, hardness. She blinked. She was always leaving pink trails around. The young-looking slime giggled. Papa would slip on her trail, and then she would pounce and hug him. She mimed diving on top of someone and hugging. It sounds like your parents loved each other, Naruto smiled. I'll bet they were good people. Papa is the coolest. Sabo-ten declared. Mama is a close second and Aniki is third. She turned to face Naruto with a wide smile. Thanks, Naruto rubbed the back of his head with an embarrassed look on his face. So, you mentioned your mother was a pink slime like you? Yup. Sabo-ten nodded as she turned her attention back to the farm. She was such a appealing pink color. At least she was most of the time. She paused in her thoughts. I was kind of jealous that Mama could do that. Oh, she changed color? Naruto raised an eyebrow. I wonder if all slimes are like that. Aha. Sabo-ten frowned. The morning after a full moon she was always a much lighter pink, almost like a milkier color. I think she was allergic to the full moon like Papa because he was always really pale and tired the day after a full moon too. Oh. I guess if they absorb too much of a certain fluid they can change color. Naruto could practically feel the wide grin on the beast that lived inside of him. Naruto found himself unable to look at the innocent girl and tried his best to ignore the booming laugh of the bijou in his head. Why yeah. He laughed weakly. Say, what's Aniki's family like? The young girl leaned towards Naruto and tilted her head. My family, Naruto sighed sadly as he recalled his parents from their brief interactions and the stories he had heard about his father while growing up. My dad was the leader of my home. People always talked about how he was an amazing and powerful ninja and how he was able to defeat the great threat that nearly destroyed our village. I'll take that as a compliment. He died in the attempt, Naruto looked down. As did my mother. I'm told she was just like me and they both loved me very much. He smiled sadly, remembering the look of pride on his father's face when they had fought Madara and the Ten Tails together. Oh no, Sabo-ten. You made Aniki sad. What would Papa do? Papa said he used to choke the chicken when he felt stressed, but Mama hit him for saying that. Besides, where am I going to find a chicken around here? The slime had hunched over with her back to Naruto, muttering loudly enough that she could have achieved the same effect by talking normally. She started to poke her index fingers together and rock backwards and forwards as she racked her brains for a way to cheer up her Aniki. While she rocked, Naruto just watched her unsure what to do. Before he could think of something to say, Sabo-ten suddenly leapt to her feet and pointed to the sky victoriously. Ah, I got it. She suddenly spun around and dived at Naruto, hugging his arm to her modest chest before chanting, "Sadness, go away. Don't come back, you're not welcome here." In a sing-song sort of voice. On seeing his confused expression, she decided to up her game and transformed an arm into a tentacle and started to ruffle his hair. I'm okay. Thanks, that really cheered me up. The blonde ninja chuckled as the pink slime released him looking victorious. That's what Mama did to me when I got sad. Oh no, I mentioned my parents. She crouched with her back to the bemused ninja again. Stupid Sabo-ten. She started poking at the dirt with her fingers. I'm fine, honestly. You cheered me up, Naruto assured her with a smile. Ah, really? She turned around, her eyes sparkling. Really, Naruto nodded and stroked the top of her head in a hair-ruffling motion, causing the girl to beam happily again. Now, what do you say we get to work on making our improved plans for the farm? I don't know. Sabo-ten looked uncertain. I don't want to ruin Papa's dream. I'm sure so long as you put your heart into it, he'll love it, Naruto nodded sagely. At least, if he's half the man you think he is. Papa is 100 times the man I think he is. Sabo-ten cheered and started to quote larger numbers while Naruto watched her antics, slowly shaking his head at the girl's liveliness. I think we have some paper in the house. Why don't you go get it for me? The career genin chuckled as Sabo-ten took off sprinting happily. Man, she's a real bundle of energy, huh? At the farmhouse. Chi-Chi yawned as she walked out her room and down the hallway. After breakfast, she had decided to do some light reading, only to find the police training manual she was looking for wasn't on her desk. She had tried searching her room, but had been unable to find it. As such, she had given up on finding it for the time being and decided to get to work cleaning the house. While Handler-san could use his clones to clean the entire building, Chi-Chi felt it unfair to exploit him like that. Besides, it would be some gentle exercise to help her wake up properly. Naruto had kindly healed her aching ribs, but the healing came with a sense of exhaustion that was strong to shake. As she approached her housemates' rooms, she moved to try and wake them before deciding against it. Kaguya was liable to be in a foul mood after the events of yesterday and Toph. Well, the toad type had been in a strange mood ever since meeting the young slime. Chi-Chi let out a sigh as she recalled the innocent little girl. As an only child, the Arachne had always wanted a younger sibling to dote on, but her parents had seemed content with just herself. Still, she had longed for someone to count on and look up to her as a big sister. That longing had just about become nothing but a distant memory, at least until Sabaton's cheery smile graced the household and reignited it. Unfortunately, it appeared the young girl had been led astray, and it was up to Chi-Chi to save Sabo-ten from a life of being Toph's underling. She shook her head of such a horrible thought and walked downstairs into the main living room. Most of the windows were still barricaded, and the room was in a state of disarray. In the middle, a frowning Sabo-ten looked around nervously. "Good morning Sabaton-chan," Chi-Chi smiled, putting on her best talking to young children face. "How are you today?" "I'm feeling pretty good. Thanks for asking, minion of the fascist regime." Sabo-ten chirped happily, oblivious to Chi-Chi's flinch. "How are you?" "I'm well. What are you doing?" The long-legged type walked over to a window and began to remove the planks from the windows. Despite the effort that she and Toph had put into barricading the house, it hadn't been enough to stop their assailant. Chi-Chi still struggled to believe that the cute, little Sabo-ten was the same creature responsible for the attack, regardless of what the evidence might suggest. "Aniki asked me to find some paper but..." She looked worried. "I don't know where it could be. I don't want to let Aniki down." The girl looked so downfallen Chi-Chi had to fight the urge to envelop her in a hug. "Let me help you," Chi-Chi offered. "It is the duty of the police to help out people, not hurt them. We have some storage rooms upstairs, maybe there's some paper in one of those." "Okay." Sabo-ten beamed. "You're kind of like that one police officer Papa said was okay." "Really?" Chi-Chi brightened up. "Yeah, Papa used to give him gifts, and because they were such good friends, the officer would tell Papa lots of neat things like when the evil coppers were going to pay him a visit so he could get all cleaned up to meet them." Sabo-ten continued. I think he was a corrupt officer taking bribes." Chi-Chi frowned. "Which is a crime." "Really?" Sabo-ten tilted her head. "So according to the police, it is a crime to be a friendly person?" "And no." The Arachne waved her hands wildly. "Papa was right. The police are real meanies." Sabo-ten declared as she headed to the rooms Chi-Chi had mentioned, while the long-legged Arachne just stared into space, her eyes dull. "Maybe Tofne-san can help me." Toph's room. A single ray of light shone through the barricaded window of the toad type's room, showing the piles of clothes and discarded junk that were as much a feature of her room as the carpets and bed. Atop of one such pile, Narf stood on his hind legs and noting with some concern that his MSTRS had been laid face down for some time. Hopping across the piles of clothes, he clambered onto the bed where a mostly naked Toph lay motionless. Her bindings were the only thing she was wearing, and even they were half unwound as if the girl had started getting undressed before just giving up and going to sleep. Narf ran along the bed, pausing beside her head and nudging the bullywug, who grunted and turned to face him. "What is it, Narf? What do you want?" she grumbled. The rat merely twitched its nose. "If you're hungry, just get something to eat," Toph frowned. "I'm deep in thought, you hear?" Narf tilted his head. "It's just, that little girl you know." Toph rolled over and stared at the ceiling. "She reminds me of someone all right." In response, Narf simply curled up on the pillow next to her head. "It seems like a lifetime ago." Toph closed her eyes. She could still remember the smells of the small swamp where she lived. She started to drift off into a daydream. Toph's flashback. "I'm fed up with waiting already." A much younger Toph snorted as she sat down in the middle of a swamp. She wore only bindings across her chest as well as some trousers slightly too big for her and held around her waist with what looked like some sort of vines, which were in plentiful supply around her. Her hair was its natural dark brown and while still in a ponytail, it only extended a few inches outside of its cloth strip hair tie. She kicked her legs impatiently as she sat on a stump next to a large tree with several deep gashes across it, one of the few landmarks in this swamp and the meeting point the boss always told them to use. It was said that each gash was made by a new boss. Her gang called the tree Old Oaky, although it wasn't an oak. However, the boss said it was, and no one dared to correct the boss. Well, no one except her, Toph thought proudly. The boss recognized her skill and general refusal to give up and had even said that one day Toph might be able to challenge her for the gang. Just the thought of it made her grin. She'd be allowed to have the official hairstyle of the boss. She'd have her very own slash on Old Oaky. Maybe she'd even cut it so deep that the massive tree would be torn straight in half. She kicked herself off the stump and picked up her bakudo, taking a few experimental stabs, fighting against imaginary foes and diving around the area, imagining herself with the boss's hairstyle smiting stupid frog-type bullywugs and being awesome. "Wow! Wani-sama is so cool." A chirpy young voice interrupted her workout. "Who the hell's there?" Toph paused. "Me." Forward plodded a younger toad type. She had a black cap on far too big for her small head as well as an equally oversized jacket looking like a student's coat, although thanks to its size on the small girl it was more of a cape, trailing across the floor. The coat's arms were almost double the length they needed to be, leaving the sleeves dangling. Her trousers were clearly an old hemp sack just cut and stitched into trousers with some vines holding them around her waist, and much like Toph, she was barefoot with her webbed feet on display. She tried to salute but ended up clumsily smacking herself in the face with the sleeve of the coat. "You took your sweet time arriving, didn't you? The boss said you'd be here ages ago." The future farm resident crossed her arms angrily. "Sorry, Wani-sama." The smaller girl bowed, causing her hat to fall off. In her attempt to catch it, she tripped over her coat and fell face first on the floor. "Ouchie. Geez, it'd be a mercy to kill you right now. That's the only mercy you can give to the weak, after all. Still, the old lady said you were gonna be worth the effort, so." Toph drew herself up to her full height as the girl put her hat on and stood up, rubbing her nose. "You wanna be one of the best in our gang, eh?" She leant forward at the younger bullywug who nodded furiously, causing her cap to fall over her eyes. "That's right. Sukban-ba-sama said to report to you." The small girl attempted another salute, with marginally more success. "Well," Toph smirked. "I am Sukban-sama's right-hand toad." She rested her bakudo on her shoulder and crouched down. "You gonna go far with me? Who knows? When I become the boss, you might even be my right-hand toad." "Of course." The smaller bullywug vibrated with excitement. "I'll be as strong as Wani-sama." He, Toph rubbed her nose. "Just listen to me, and you'll go far." "Hi Wani-sama. I'll always listen to you." Suddenly, the scene started to distort, and a cacophony of thumping sounds started to rise, as if a large group were softly hitting the moist ground with sticks in a rhythmless beat. Her vision was blurry, but she was vaguely aware of the many figures surrounding her, and one figure in particular right in front of her, a giddy smile on its face. She was sat down with her back against old Oki, the pale moonlight casting long shadows of the distorted figures around her, and the one in front of her stepped forward slowly, a bloody bakuto in hand. "I don't understand." Toph's voice was strained as she struggled to stand, trying to use the cuts in the tree as handholds but unable to find the strength to lift herself. The world was spinning around, and she couldn't remember where she was. "Because Wani-sama. This is the only mercy you can give to the weak." There was a sudden crash, and the dream ended. End flashback. Toph's eyes rocketed open, and she sat up breathing heavily and received a worried look from her pet rat before she settled back down. She could still hear the rhythmic thumping from her dream. It was then she noticed her door shaking, like someone was trying to repeatedly pull it further closed than it already was. "What the hell?" She growled as she rolled out of bed, yelping and muttering curses as she landed on her wounded ankle. "Someone's gonna get a hiding for this." She tossed her clothes on, watched by a curious Narf. When she threw open the door, she had planned to yell at the person responsible, but on seeing Chi-Chi carrying a vacuum and looking sheepish, she decided to hold back on her rant. "Oh, sorry. Did I wake you?" She gestured to the vacuum cleaner. "I got the cord caught around a door handle and it." "What the hell are you doing?" Toph pointed at her. "I was trying to catch up on my sleep." "Cleaning the house," the arachne remarked. "Unlike some people, I don't like living in a squalor." She cast a pointed look at the wasteland that was Toph's bedroom, causing to the toad type to narrow her eyes and pull the door to hide Chi-Chi's view of the room. "You gotta. Problem with how I live." The bullywug crossed her arms. "My room is perfectly fine for me, and the boss doesn't have a problem with it. In fact, only you do. Maybe it's you that has the problem. But how can you find anything in that pigsty?" Chi-Chi pointed to the room. "I'm pretty sure that living like that can't be good for you. I'm also fairly certain that it's violation of several health laws such as. It ain't a pigsty. It's, organized chaos." The delinquent amphibian defended herself. Organized chaos. If Chi-Chi was annoyed by being cut off, she gave no indication of it. "How can you find anything in there?" "Well, I use the Narf system." Toph declared proudly. "The, what?" Chi-Chi frowned as she tried to think of what the acronym could mean. "Narf. Bring me that book I was reading, will ya?" Toph called over her shoulder, pushing the door open slightly so that her rat could get in and out. "Narf, you don't mean that rat from the other day?" Chi-Chi's 6 eyes widened when she saw the rat in question dragging a book along in its teeth. It pulled the book to Toph's feet and squeaked noisily until Toph tossed a piece of her breakfast out of her jacket pocket at the rat, who picked it up and headed back into the room. "See?" She picked the book up, grinning smugly. Did you train that rat?" Chi-Chi was torn between being impressed Toph had trained a rat to such a degree and reprimanding her for letting it roam free. Who knows what kind trouble it could cause. Trying to move on, she tried not to think of the many regulations that Toph was probably breaking. "Useful, ain't he?" Toph waved the book. "So you can stop judging me now." "Wait a minute," Chi-Chi snatched the book and rubbed the strange stains from the cover. "This is my police training manual. I was looking for this earlier." She paused. "Wait a second. Were you reading my book? Does this mean you're starting to think of becoming a police officer too?" Her eyes lit up. "Have I been a good influence and shown you how much better it would be to be a respectable member of society rather than a deadbeat dropout?" Chi-Chi's many eyes seemed to shine with hope, although it didn't last long. "Like hell you have. I needed something funny to read." Toph snorted. Like get this, there was this bit about a hostage situation, and it said you should talk with the criminal. She let out a howl of laughter. Yeah. 'Cause that'll work. You gotta go in all guns blazing like a loose cannon. And there was this bit about de-escalating a conflict. Why'd you wanna do that? There's nothing like a good brawl. I suppose it was too much to hope you'd seen the light, Chi-Chi mentally chastised herself. Still, I would appreciate if you would ask before taking my things. Stealing from a fellow exchange student is a punishable offense as outlined in article. Yeah, sure. I'll ask your fat butt next time I wanna steal something from ya. The delinquent rolled her eyes and slammed the door in Chi-Chi's face, who merely shook her head, already having gotten used to the rowdy girl's behavior. My abdomen is perfectly normal-sized. Chi-Chi, she called through the door before taking a deep breath and returning to work cleaning the house. At least one of Handler-san's guests should try and help him out. She glanced at the door to a certain former goddess. And I doubt Kagaya-san is going to do much. Kagaya's room. Look at him. Kagaya frowned as she stared out of her window at Naruto on the farm. Currently, he had his army of clones running around and pulling up weeds while a cheerful Seibo-ten scribbled on some paper next to a fence. The Naruto she assumed to be the real one was laid down on the grass next to her, dropping his guard around her. Is he truly so foolish as to let that pile of gloop so close after what it did last night? On her neatly made bed, Usagi twitched its ears and watched as she stared out of the window, which Kagaya took as its response, glancing over her shoulder at the small creature with a pained expression. I know he spared me, but I am a completely different case, Kagaya scowled at the rabbit. I am unable to challenge him in my current state. She frowned as she glanced at the empty kimono sleeve hanging loose. Her missing arm was a constant reminder of her loss, yet it was one that she would have to deal with. Without her powers, she wasn't going to be regenerating it any time soon, and she refused to allow Naruto to use that healing power. Her cheeks flushed slightly as she recalled the warm sensations that his power invoked in her. Anyway, without my powers I pose little threat to him and others, and out of all of the guests I am unfortunately the weakest physically. I am unable to defend myself against the threats of this strange world, and the other residents are more likely to be the cause of my suffering rather than my salvation. Usagi's nose twitched as it stretched out on the pillow, and there was a bang from outside followed by Toph's angry voice. If Kagaya noticed this, she showed no signs, choosing to focus on her own problems. In her defense, loud and angry was Toph's normal tone, so it wasn't alarming to the former goddess. Taking all this into account, allowing a potential threat to get this close to me is unacceptable. If our roles were reversed, well, I probably would have killed the idiot servant the instant we arrived here and then simply gone back home. She paused, trying to ignore the pang of guilt she felt at casually talking about killing Naruto, but found herself unable to shake the unsettling feeling. Sensing Kagaya's turmoil, Usagi leapt from the bed, then hopped towards the former goddess, who kneeled to slide the fluffy mammal's ears. She crouched there for a good few minutes, feeling the soft fur beneath her fingers as Usagi leaned into her hand. Still, there is no sense in trying to reason with him. Kagaya let out a soft, almost fond sigh. Clearly critical thinking is not his strong point. It just makes it all the more maddening that he defeated me. I suppose even a goddess can be defeated if the right conditions are met. She paused as an idea formed in her head. I wonder if the slime has any weaknesses that I could exploit even in my current state. The vulgar spider mentioned something about goggles that answer questions on some sort of web. Perhaps I will find the answer to my questions there. She smiled as she glanced at the rabbit. I swear from this moment on, I shall be prepared for whatever this strange world throws at me. There was a sudden noise from outside that Kagaya had never heard before. It sounded like some sort of feral monster roaring, and she leapt backwards from the door, fighting back a cry of alarm, before remembering herself, and glared at the rabbit. It is fortunate you do not speak. My reputation is safe. She opened the door as confidently as she could and paused at the sight of Chi-Chi holding a strange contraption. "Oh, sorry Kagaya-san," Chi-Chi turned the vacuum off with one of her many legs. "Were you sleeping? Only layabouts and good-for-nothing stay in bed this late," Kagaya declared, appearing upset that Chi-Chi would even suggest that she would compose herself in such a manner. "It's like 11 in the morning," Toph yelled from her room. "Some of us need our sleep, DMN it." Point proven, the former goddess had a slight smile as Chi-Chi shook her head. "What was that infernal noise?" "You mean the vacuum cleaner?" Chi-Chi gestured to the strange device next to her. "Didn't you have these where you come from? What purpose does it serve?" Kagaya regarded the strange machine suspiciously as if expecting it to attack her at any moment. "It's used to clean up," Chi-Chi explained briefly, "it sucks up dust and dirt to keep everything clean." "Then why are you using it?" The former goddess looked at the arachne with a look of mild confusion. "I would have thought that a filthy house would better suit your people." "My people?" Chi-Chi opened and shut her mouth several times, not sure how to react to her words. "Well, yes, you are part spider, are you not?" The former goddess raised an eyebrow quizzically. "You eat insects and the likes?" "Oh," Chi-Chi sighed as she realized what Kagaya was implying, "I may be an arachne, but I'm also just like any other girl. I like to live in a clean house." She paused as she glanced at Toph's door, unlike someone who I could care to mention. "Fight me!" Toph yelled from her room. "That would be a violation of Article." Chi-Chi started to explain only for the indignant Toad to interrupt her as usual. "Bah! Excuses!" The Toad type scoffed from the other side of the door. "How surprising," Kagaya tapped her chin thoughtfully. She looked the arachne up and down, noting that her clothes were crease-free and looked well-maintained, unlike Kagaya's frayed kimono, which needed some repairs. "I never expected such a civilized point of view from you. Is it really that shocking?" Chi-Chi frowned slightly. "I thought my appearance made it clear that I look after myself. I keep my hair tidy, and I polish my chitin regularly." She glanced at her hands, which glinted in the light. On closer inspection, the former goddess could tell that they had been looked after, being both incredibly sharp and clean. She suddenly felt self-conscious as she noted the dirt under her fingernails as well as the fact they had grown uncomfortably long for her. Even the arachne's hair was well maintained while the hair of the bunny goddess was fraught with split ends and in need of a good cut. Realizing this, she subconsciously started to run her sole hand through her long white locks. "To think my hair and nails have fallen into such states that even a vulgar spider can look better than me," Kagaya let out a sigh. "Perhaps I should learn to care for my hair," she mumbled as she twirled a lock around her finger, noting the split ends. "You don't know how to look at yourself?" Chi-Chi sounded surprised. "Given how nice it looked, I had assumed that you would." "Thank you," the former goddess felt a bit of her pride return at Chi-Chi's compliment. "I used to have people to do it for me," Kagaya admitted, "beyond combing my hair, I never had to look after it. I only started washing it myself after the idiot servant got us stranded in this world." "I could help you out," Chi-Chi saw the opportunity to bond with Kagaya and took it, noting the latter's distressed expression. "I cut and style my hair," her voice had a clear edge of pride to it. Kagaya didn't immediately reply, instead staring into space. After what felt like an age to Chi-Chi, Kagaya finally shook her head. "While I appreciate that you appear to have the beginning of what could be called skill at maintaining hair, I am afraid my hair requires a great deal of skill to return to its true splendor." Kagaya nodded her head respectfully. "I am thankful for the offer, however." "Don't mention it," Chi-Chi smiled. "After all, since we're all members of the exchange program, it's only natural to help each other out, right? We're all from different walks of life, here to learn how to live in this new situation." "That is somewhat true," Kagaya conceded. "Although I doubt the bandit toad shares your opinion." "Ha! It's every toad for themselves, you hear." Toph snorted from the other side of the door. It'd be easier for you to talk with us if you'd just open the door, Chi-Chi sighed. It's clear you want to be a part of our chat. Like hell I do. You're just talking far too loud for me to sleep. The door swung open, and a now fully dressed Toph stood arms crossed in her doorway. She adjusted her cap before limping out of the room. I might as well get something to eat. You're clearly not gonna let me get a wink of sleep. One moment please, Kaguya cleared her throat. It appears that I have been misjudging the vulgar spider. You could call me by my name, Chi-Chi prompted, an almost hopeful look on her face. Kaguya didn't respond immediately. Instead, she turned to face Chi-Chi with an aghast expression. You would expect me to say such a vulgar term? Her look of genuine horror was so great that for a moment, Chi-Chi almost felt guilty about suggesting it. Eventually, the goddess shook her head, no. I am afraid that would be a betrayal of my bloodline to spout such vulgarity. Kaguya looked away with a faint dusting of red on her otherwise hauntingly pale skin. You could just call her Spider Pig, Toph shrugged dismissively as she leant against the doorway, putting her hands in the pockets of her trousers. Or fat but copper. Getting back to the topic at hand, Kaguya coughed genteelly. I was curious, do you actually work at looking as uncouth as you do? Well of course, Toph puffed out her chest, you don't look this awesome by accident. You don't want to know what I had to do to get this outfit together, I gotta warn ya, it was pretty violent. She cracked her knuckles as she turned her head away with a serious expression on her face. I'm guessing she stole it from a human washing line, Chi-Chi remarked dryly, not noticing Toph's change in demeanor. I earned these clothes. Spilt BLD to get M. The smaller liminal clenched her fists as if recalling a past fight. They're a reminder of, actually, you know what? You wouldn't care anyway. Was like your heroic escape from Agent Smith when she was bringing you here. Chi-Chi smiled sweetly. And every fight you've ever attempted to have with Tio-san? Fight me. Toph snapped as she pointed her bakudo at the arachne who merely shook her head. Getting back to your appearance, is the smell intentional? Kaguya wrinkled her nose, did you decide that smelling like a rubbish heap was a part of being a delinquent? Smellin' like a... Toph sniffed at her armpits before returning her attention to Kaguya, who was somewhat amused by the toad type's antics. I'll have you know I bathe once a week. If I lived in that landfill you call a room, I'd need a shower every time I stepped outside it. The long-legged arachne shivered at the thought. You're just jealous of my natural musk, Toph declared proudly before limping past her two housemates. Where are you going? The arachne glanced at the injured toad, who stopped and leant on her wooden sword for support before looking over her shoulder with a scowl. Not that it's any of your business, but I'm gonna go for a wander round. I gotta make sure nobody is encroaching on my turf. Toph continued limping away. Remember, you cannot stray too far from Handler-san as stated by Article 21D subsection. Ah, bite me ya pig, Toph grunted. You can shove the rules up your fat butt. God knows you got plenty of room for them up there. I am a perfectly healthy size for my age and species. Chi-Chi blushed slightly. Kaguya-san. The aforementioned lady had walked past Chi-Chi, following the toad. There is little for me to do, so I might as well oversee my servant's work. She paused. If you wish to join me I would not be completely averse to the idea. Chi-Chi was physically shocked at Kaguya's offer. It must be my strong work. Paying off. The training manual on dealing with difficult civilians was right. Sure. She happily scurried alongside Kaguya. That is fortunate. Kaguya smiled to herself. Should the slime attack, the vulgar spider may assist in my chances of survival, and I suppose she is not entirely unpleasant to spend time around either. Back to the fields. So. What are you drawing? Naruto crouched down next the enthusiastically scribbling Sabo-ten. I'm not drawing, I'm planning. Sabo-ten pouted cutely, earning a ruffle of her head slime by Naruto. I'm trying to remember all the cool things Papa wanted to put on the farm. I remember he wanted a big meadow for Mama because she liked pretty flowers. They taste real good. Oh. Naruto smiled, so do you eat plants as well? I can eat anything since my body just breaks it down. Sabo-ten proudly declared. Papa said I was such a good girl for not being a picky eater. She beamed at Naruto before returning her attention to the sheet of paper that she was drawing on. In Naruto's opinion, it was less of a plan and more of a fantasy drawing, as he was pretty sure that a farm didn't need a moat and battlements to keep out nosy coppers and rival farmers. Still, as the young girl doodled away, laid on her front and lazily waving her feet, Naruto felt happy. There was something about the scene that lifted his spirits. In the pleasant weather, he started to feel tired and decided to have a quick rest to refresh himself. I'm going to have a bit of nap, okay? Naruto glanced at Sabo-ten, who nodded energetically before returning to her doodling. The blonde ninja lay back on the grass, enjoying the gentle breeze and the rhythmic noises as his clones got to work weeding and repairing some of the barns that had yet to be looked at in any detail. He closed his eyes and allowed his senses to wander, taking the moment of quiet just to relax. As his clones finished up the weeding and started to dispel themselves one by one, he started to drift into a state of semi-consciousness. Suddenly he was stirred from his relaxed state by a chill, as if someone had stood between him and the sunlight he had been soaking in. Is something the matter, Sabo-ten? He opened an eye before realizing Sabo-ten was in the same place as before, looking behind him with fear in her eyes. He slowly stood up, making sure he kept his back to whatever was causing the shadow, so it didn't attack. From what he could see, the figure behind him was clearly a giant, with what appeared to be a scythe in its hands. Oh no! It's true. Sabo-ten started to shiver. Papa said if I was a bad girl a big monster would come and take me away, but I stayed up late last night. I'm so sorry, Papa. She whimpered, her entire body quivering like jelly as she started to step away from the shadow. The look of horror on the young girl's face was enough to make Naruto leap into action. Before anyone could even blink, he had spun around and launched himself at the newcomer, who tried to use the scythe to block. Given his ninja training, Naruto easily slipped by the clumsy attempt at a guard and grasped the overalls of the blue-skinned intruder, using his chakra to supplement his strength and lift the giant up before throwing him across the floor. The assailant rolled around, dropping his scythe and struggled to his knees before bowing, his head on the floor. I'm so sorry. He cried out in alarm. Naruto blinked while Sabo-ten watched on, stars in her eyes at how cool her Aniki was. Please have mercy. The giant repeatedly bowed his head, probably doing more damage to himself as his head hit the dirt than what Naruto had done with the throw. The blonde ninja was getting a headache just watching the giant. Before Naruto could think of a response, his instincts told him to jump back, which he did just in time to see a brunette blur fly past him and strike the prostrating giant, sending them both scuttling across the floor. When the dust settled, Naruto found himself staring at a brunette wearing dirty overalls. Her muscular build showed she was no stranger to strong work, and after recovering her bearings, she gave Naruto a strong glare. Hey! What's the big idea? Don't go picking on Fremont. The girl had a thick country accent. Fremont? You mean the big blue guy you're sitting on? Naruto gestured to the giant who had gone silent, although the fact that after the collision, the girl was straddling his face may have had something to do with that. Ah, CRP. The girl leapt off of him. Sorry about that, big fella. You alright? I am fine. Thank you, Jackie, Fremont mumbled, a thick blush on his face. I guess your name's Jackie, then. Naruto gestured to the girl, who nodded fiercely. DMN straight I am, she smirked. The name's Jackie Shukaku, best darn farmer for at least 50 miles. Shukaku. Sabo-ten frowned. That's the name of the man who owns the farm next to this one. I remember Papa mentioning him. Wait. She's here to spy on Papa's farm. Sabo-ten pointed at her plan. This is why Papa wanted walls and a moat. She declared, flailing her arms wildly. Walls and a moat. Jackie snorted with laughter. That does sound like something the guy who used to run this farm would want. I remember he did always seem to dream big. I'm the daughter of the guy who used to run Shukaku Farm. Pleased to meet Cha. Not to sound rude, but could you explain why you're here? Naruto asked. Well, the spider gal and the toad punk said you could use some help getting your farm up and running, so I figured me and the big boy here would come and give you some tips. Well, until you went and threw him like a sack of potatoes anyway. Jackie frowned slightly and crossed her arms. I don't appreciate that, you hear? Why did he sneak up and not say anything? Sabaton-chan here was terrified. Naruto challenged. You see. Fremont looked away. I'm sorry. He fell back into the prostrating position. I'm not the best at dealing with new people. I was trying to work up the courage to say hello. Get on your feet, you big softy, Jackie sighed as she watched the blue giant struggle to his feet. Oh. Sorry, Naruto rubbed the back of his head with an embarrassed smile. I've heard bad stories about people with scythes back where I come from. Anyway, my name is Naruto, and this is Sabo-ten, the daughter of this farm's owner. Hi. Sabo-ten waved cheerily. Papa always said your papa was a bit of a rube, but a nice guy. A rube? Jackie blinked. This kid is pretty blunt, ain't she? Sabo-ten tilted her head in a cute manner. Is rube a mean word? Papa said it meant someone who lived away from the city. Ah. I guess that means we're all rubes. The girl beamed cutely, earning a soft chuckle from Naruto and Jackie. Well, ain't you the cutest little, Jackie tilted her head. Sorry, but I reckon I've never seen a liminal like you before. Liminal? Sabo-ten tilted her head. I am a pink slime like mama. Pink slime. Jackie glanced at Fremont, who merely shrugged. Well, nice to meet you, Lil Sabi-chan. We farmers' daughters should stick together. Right. Sabo-ten beamed before turning to Naruto for confirmation. Is that okay, Aniki? That's fine by me. Naruto shook his head with a wry smile as Sabo-ten cheered and ran up to Jackie, bombarding her with questions. Jackie was unable to get a word in edgewise until Naruto cleared his throat. So, you said you were here to help me out? Naruto ruffled Sabaton's head slime when she pouted at him for interrupting her. Jackie nodded. So. Whatcha? You know about farming? You grow crops and raise animals, Naruto nodded. And rice. Sabo-ten chimed in, then you make it into sake and give it to your friends. I get the feeling I might have bitten off more than I can chew, Jackie chuckled as she took in the farm. You got to work weeding the place though, so at least you can do that. So. Trying to invade my turf, are ya? A boisterous Toph yelled as she limped over towards them. I'll have to show you why you don't mess with me. Oh, hey Toph, Naruto glanced at the toad type. You know, I can heal that ankle if you want me to. Faye. Toph spat on the floor. A little injury like this ain't gonna stop me. Despite her bravado, it was clear her ankle was causing her some discomfort as she stabbed the bakuto into the floor, then leaned on it to try and take the weight off of her wounded ankle. Plus, it gives her an excuse to use whenever she fails, Chi-Chi added cheerfully as she and Kagaya joined the group. As the lady of this land, I welcome you, Kagaya bowed her head softly. Please forgive the others, they are. She paused as she regarded Toph, a work in progress, you might say. Fight me. Toph challenged before an icy glare caused her to look away and mumble under her breath how lucky Kagaya was that she had plans today so couldn't kick the bunny goddess backside. Well, the name's Jackie and this here is Fremont. Say hi, big boy. She glanced at the troll who was trying to cower behind the much smaller girl. It's a pleasure to meet ya, she offered a hand to Kaguya, who frowned before lightly gripping the cleanest finger and shaking it. Ha! You're a barrel of laughs. Jackie snorted. I am Kaguya, the lady of these lands. I am assuming by your dialect that you are a local. If you require something from me, request it from my servant. Kaguya paused. You seem acquainted with him and the other guests at the house, so I shall not waste your time with introductions. May I inquire as to your purpose on my lands? If you want to take the farm, I'll take you all on. Toph added her 2 cents. You'd better be ready for an butt kicking like no other. She posed proudly, Sabo-ten gazing at her in admiration, much to Chi-Chi's displeasure. Jackie has kindly offered to teach me a few things to help us start up the farm. The Arachne shook her head as the toad type started stretching out as if getting ready to fight, with Sabo-ten looking just as pumped up as the toad type herself. Yeah, though I wasn't really expecting you to be so inexperienced and for the farm to be in such a state. Jackie laughed weakly. Don't get me wrong, the living area is pretty nice, but the actual farm needs some love. Unfortunately, the servants' repairs were quick fixes with limited materials. I expect him to remedy this in due time. Kaguya gestured to Naruto, who was shaking his head at Toph and Sabaton's antics. By himself? Jackie gestured to the farm. This is a pretty large area. Even Fremont here would need help to work all this land and get everything up and running. Y'all need an army or something. You called? Naruto smirked as he summoned another wave of clones. Wah! Jackie blinked as she walked up and poked one of the clones. Are you a liminal as well? She glanced at Naruto, who shook his head. Nope, 100% human. Naruto proudly announced as the summoned clone spread out to work on the farm. Well, Jackie grinned, I'll guess that means you might have a chance of getting this place up and running. Fremont here can help you with the heavy lifting. He's a pretty tough fella. She playfully punched the giant, who blushed and looked away. He doesn't look so strong, Toph boasted. I could take him on. WL. Fremont started twiddling his fingers while resting the scythe against his body. I wouldn't want to. I mean, I could hurt you. He kept mumbling as Toph tried to goad him into a fight. Tell you what, Jackie rolled up her sleeves, revealing well-developed arms. I'll challenge you to an arm wrestle. You wanna rumble with me? Toph took her jacket off. Your funeral. I don't think you should. Fremont looked at Jackie nervously. You might get hurt, and if something should happen to you, I don't know what I'd do. It's just a friendly arm wrestle, Jackie laughed as she slapped the troll on the back. Quit your worrying. She walked over to a tree stump, with Toph taking her position at the opposite side, and the two got ready to wrestle, watched over by a worried Fremont and bemused Naruto, who was ready to step in should it be required. On the count of 3. Jackie grinned as she locked hands with Toph. Sure, the toad type grinned. I'll even let you count down. It won't do you any good though. You're gonna lose. Naruto watched as the match begun. While Toph could take a good game, most of her strength came from her legs and leaping attacks. She had a bit of strength in her arms, but no more than say a genin from his village. Admittedly, that did put her above a normal human. Jackie, on the other hand, appeared better built for such a contest. The strong life of a farmer had built her strength to impressive levels. After 5 minutes, the two contestants were starting to get fatigued, and Chi-Chi was getting increasingly worried that Toph would hurt Jackie, but it appeared her fears were in vain as the human girl released her grip with a tired sigh. DMN, you're too strong for me, Jackie laughed. That was pretty intense. Ha! Another bows before the almighty Toph-sama. The toad type posed victoriously, much to Naruto's amusement. She started bowing to an imaginary crowd and picking up an imaginary trophy, making the peace sign at the other liminals. I figured I'd take it easy on ya so I didn't hurt ya. Such a sore winner, Chi-Chi shook her head. That was awesome, One-sama. Sabo-ten cheered, unaware of the flinch from Toph, who merely grunted a quiet thanks before falling uncharacteristically quiet. On seeing Sabaton's reaction, the long-legged arachne was struck by inspiration. "Sa Jackie-san." "Yeah." The female farmer smiled at the arachne. "How can I help you? Would you care to arm wrestle me as well?" She coughed awkwardly, aware that Sabo-ten had turned her attention to Chi-Chi. "As a potential police officer, I need to be able to overpower and restrain people if necessary, and feel as if you would be a good test of my own physical abilities." "You want to arm wrestle too?" Sabo-ten walked over to her, and Chi-Chi's heart swelled as she imagined the young slime calling her cool and seeing like a big sister. "That's right," Chi-Chi smiled. "You want to oppress Jackie-chan?" The small girl looked horrified. Papa was right. Police only want to bully those who can't fight back. You waited until Tofne wore her out before pouncing. No. That's not. Chi-Chi deflated as the slime girl wagged a finger at her as if scolding a child. Papa said police are bad people who brutalize the innocents. Sabo-ten stood between Jackie and Chi-Chi. "They sure do," Toph nodded sagely, having recovered from the strange quiet spell. "She's finally showing her true colors." "Hi." Sabo-ten saluted Toph, leaving the devastated Chi-Chi slumping her humanoid torso forward, a bemused Naruto patting her shoulder as a confused Kagaya and Fremont watched on. "What a lively household," Jackie laughed boisterously. "You must have so much fun here." "It is certainly different." Kagaya frowned. "Only last night we all almost got killed by a slime monster, and about a week ago I nearly got killed by a large vehicle." "I did get hit by that truck," Naruto pointed out in a cheerful voice, somewhat at odds with the topic of conversation. "You got hit by a truck?" Jackie's eyes widened as she looked for any signs of injury. Guess if you can make solid clones of yourself, it ain't that surprising that you survived being hit by a heavy thing like that." "You believe him?" Chi-Chi blinked, surprised at the easygoing nature of the country girl. Even she took a bit of time of witnessing Naruto's abilities before accepting that he would have survived such an impact. "Well, I already seen that him make clones," Jackie laughed. "If you can't believe your own eyes, what can you trust? Plus, he seems decent enough." She nodded, fully confident in her ability to judge people. It hadn't steered her wrong yet. "You and the idiot servant will get along swimmingly. You both seem to trust people on sight," Kagaya sighed wearily. "It is a trait that will no doubt put you in as much danger as my servant has put me in." "Hey, I've saved you almost as many times as I've nearly gotten you killed," Naruto pointed out somewhat defensively. "Oh ho." Jackie laughed. "So he is like your Prince Charming? Swooping in to save you?" "I am unfamiliar with this Prince Charming, but if his name is anything to go by, the servant is nothing like him," Kagaya stated with certainty. "Still he is, almost competent." Coming from her, that's practically a confession. It always amused Naruto how he could visualize Kurama's expressions by his tone of voice. Naruto could see him grinning smugly, happy to poke fun at Naruto and Kagaya, at least out of her earshot. "So, when's the wedding?" Naruto chose not to respond, but silently chuckled to himself. Toph's room. There was a rustling under the covers of Toph's bed as Narf decided to officially start his day. Much like his MSTRS, he was a firm believer in not doing much before dinner time, besides eating breakfast, that is. He would have traveled with his MSTRS, but decided to do some more exploring instead. He had entered this household some days ago, and he and the toad type seemed to bond instantly, that is to say, she gave him scraps, and he was perfectly happy to eat them. Add to that the fact his MSTRS's room had plenty of cozy places for him to hide and sleep, and you had the perfect living arrangement for the rat. He crawled down the bed, sniffing the air and skittering to the door without any sign of fear or caution. As far as he was aware, his MSTRS ruled this place, at least she made it sound that way to Narf, and as such, he was also high up in the hierarchy of the household and free to go where he pleased. On previous adventures, he had explored the giant spider girl's room, finding it too clean for his liking. There were no scraps of food to eat, and everything smelt wrong to the rat. This time however, she seems to have started putting down traps in response to his MSTRS's living conditions, and while Narf was far too smart to fall prey to one, it was a clear, stay out, message that the rodent was happy to oblige, especially since there was nothing in that room he wanted. The blonde one's room was bare bones with even fewer decorations than the spider girl's. He had left what looked like, to Narf anyway, some sharp metal sticks and stars lying on his table. There were a few pieces of paper there as well, covered in human words and pictures of farm and forge-related things, but they seemed mostly untouched. There was also a note on top that smelled of the giant spider on them, suggesting maybe the blonde one had asked her to get them for him. None of this was of interest to Narf however, as there was nothing to eat, so the room was very rarely visited. The newest arrival unnerved his MSTRS somewhat, and Narf wasn't sure why. Her room was also mostly empty, with a picture of what the rat assumed were her father and her hugging. Once again there was no food here, and he only checked it for clues on why his MSTRS was so uneasy around the girl. When no clues materialized, Narf quickly gave up looking and instead headed to the last room for him to explore. In his short time here, he had always gotten strange vibes from the pale, horned woman's room, but with nothing else to do, Narf decided to investigate. The rat approached the door cautiously as it had been left slightly ajar by its occupant before she had left with Narf's MSTRS. His nose twitching slightly, he peered around the door and slowly crept into the strange room. The first thing he noticed was the low level of light, even around this time in the afternoon. The curtains were drawn to allow only the barest amount rays in that were required to safely navigate the room. Beyond this was a small calligraphy set to one side, which Narf ignored as it wasn't edible. The rat paused in its travels as he sensed eyes on himself. Looking towards the bed, the curious rodent could see the sparkling of what seemed like hundreds of equally curious eyes. Not one to back down from a challenge, Narf stood his ground, almost daring the onlookers to approach, to which one did. Usagi had been confused when the rat first entered the room. This was the rabbit's territory and as a representative of Lady Kaguya, lady of the house, should have been viewed as sacred by the other residents. That a low-breed rodent dared to tread inside was a shock to Kaguya's favored rabbit, but that shock grew to anger as Narf refused to leave. Hopping from its spot on the bed, the rabbit slowly advanced on Narf, weighing up the other rodent. Narf, for his part, found himself unnerved by the unyielding glare of this lead rabbit as well as the other eyes watching him, waiting for a moment to strike. The two animals stood staring each other down, waiting for the other to make the first move. The glare of the rabbit made it clear that the rat wasn't welcome here, yet the rat was not going to back down. This was his MSTRS's house and he definitely outranked some fluffy bunnies. After a tense standoff that lasted several minutes, there was a clattering noise from downstairs, and Narf chose to retreat. He had made his point and if the bedroom's owner were to return, things could get nasty. Still, he tried to leave the room as slowly and casually as possible to let that prissy rabbit know he wasn't fleeing, merely that it wasn't worth his time. If Narf's actions were designed to get under Usagi's skin, they succeeded and the rabbit watched the rat leave, resisting the urge to leap after it and chase the thing away. It was below the rabbit to act in such a manner, Usagi decided before hopping back onto the bed. But if that vulgar rat thought it could trespass on Lady Kaguya's sacred territory and get away with it, then that it was clearly misinformed. Usagi would have its revenge. Back in the fields. Naruto wiped the sweat from his brow and leaned on the hoe as he watched his clones industrially toil away under the quiet guidance of the troll Fremont. There was something satisfying about seeing his clones strong at work like a uniformed task force, plus the fact they seemed to be making good progress was heartening. Unfortunately, not everyone was being as helpful. Toph, having defeated Jackie in an arm wrestle, was feeling pretty good about herself and decided to return to the house to get something to eat and revel in her glory. Kaguya, having grown bored of standing around watching clones of Naruto digging up dirt, joined the toad type in returning to the household, followed by Chi-Chi who had sworn to keep them out of trouble. All Naruto had said is that he knew she would as he trusted her and the Arachne's earlier gloom had been lifted, and the group left, all of them in reasonably good moods. Toph had won a fight, Chi-Chi had been praised and Kaguya, well she wasn't as vocal as usual in her complaints, so Naruto was taking that as a sign that she was in a good mood. Sabo-Ten was cheerful as always and fully committed to helping rebuild her papa's farm. Unfortunately, that enthusiasm was not converting into progress, as the cheerful slime girl had been hacking at the same patch of weeds with a small sickle for about 20 minutes now with little progress, but every sign of enjoying the work she was doing. Well, Jackie wiped her forehead with the back of her arm, smudging some dirt across it before leaning on her shovel. There's nothing quite like a bit of strong work to get the BLD pumping. She glanced at the clones. I'll imagine that you're grateful for the clones, eh? You can say that again, Naruto chuckled. This would be an impossible task without them. I sure wouldn't mind having ya on my farm, Jackie nodded, unaware of Fremont's sudden look of horror. You could really ease the workload on the big guy and me. Them clones, oh, yours or something else. Thanks, Naruto let out a chuckle, kind of funny that the one technique I always failed at the academy would be my go-to technique now. Oh. The farmer's daughter tilted her head, that's a learner technique. It's an advanced version of a basic technique known as a bunshin, Naruto grinned. Say. You're definitely a human, right? Jackie frowned. I don't reckon I ever heard of anyone who could do these magic tricks like you. Magic? They're ninjutsu, Naruto explained. Ninjutsu? Like what ninjas are supposed to use. I am a ninja, Naruto gestured to his forehead protector. From the village hidden in the leaves, Konoha. Fancy-sounding name, Jackie chuckled before stretching out. You reckon you could teach me how to do it? I imagine having lots of me running round my farm could be plenty useful. There was a sudden choking noise from Fremont, earning Naruto and Jackie's attention. You okay there, big fella? Fine, Fremont mumbled before returning his attention to the clones. I don't think so, see I use stuff called chakra to perform jutsu, Naruto rubbed the back of his head. It's kind of like an internal energy source that is composed of physical and spiritual energy. Humans from here don't seem to have much, if any, so I doubt you'd be able to learn anything as demanding as the Kage Bunshin. Well, ain't that a kick in the teeth, Jackie let out a disappointed sigh. If you ever need some help though I'd be happy to send you a small group of clones, Naruto offered. Thanks to certain circumstances I have plenty of chakra to spare. Well, I might take you up on that next harvest time, she chuckled. I don't have a shortage of hands to work, but cheap and trustworthy LBR would definitely help. She glanced at Fremont. Can't leave all the strong stuff to Fremont over there. It's no trouble really, Fremont smiled at her. How'd you two meet? Naruto asked. Same way as you and the girls, I'd wager. Jackie glanced at the afternoon sky, signed up as a host, 'cause I figured I might get a liminal that could help on the farm, and next thing I knew Fremont showed up. Been thanking my lucky stars since. Running a farm like my old man's ain't easy, but with a good friend like Fremont to help out, things ain't so bad. She smiled warmly at Fremont who suddenly found the ground very interesting. So, is it just you two on the farm? Naruto asked. Most times, she nodded, a little bit of a distant look in her eyes. I mean, the old man shows up to help in busy times, but he trusts me to run the farm round here. Just like my papa. Sabo-Ten cheerfully announced as she continued hacking away at the weeds. He told me to look after his farm for him while he went on a journey with Mama. Still, it ain't an easy life. I mean, if I'd believed the rumors I probably wouldn't have bothered with the program, and the big lump and I would have probably never met. What rumors? Naruto glanced at Jackie, who chuckled in response. Can't believe you haven't heard none. When I went to sign up for the program, I had plenty of people telling me why it was a bad idea. Jackie lifted the shovel over her shoulder. There were tales of some liminals using the program as a cover for criminal activities and plenty of stories about humans being attacked by their guests. None were true, mind you, but it seemed everyone knew someone whose auntie's cousin's niece's best friend had been attacked by a liminal. She shook her head sadly. Seems some people just want to cause trouble and chase out anyone who isn't like them. Are there really people who are against liminals? Naruto frowned, realizing the only other human besides Jackie that he had interacted with since coming here was Ms. Smith, who would probably require to be proliminal given her job, and the DLVRY driver Ken, who didn't seem to get fazed by much. Yeah, Jackie nods. Word is not so long ago there was a group who tried to attack liminals. Of course, this was all just after they were announced to the world and no one really understood each other. I'd like to think that after 2 years of interacting and living with each other, things have gotten a bit better. I certainly ain't had no issues, but I guess we are out in the sticks here. Jackie glanced at her watch. Man, time flies. I'd better be heading back home. Thanks for the help and it was nice to meet you, Naruto grinned. Feel free to drop by any time. Thanks, I might take you up on that. Jackie grinned as she walked over to Fremont. Sorry about the whole throwing you around thing, Naruto offered a hand which the blue troll shook lightly. Ah, it's nothing. Fremont bowed his head. I'm sorry for scaring you. It's okay. Sabo-ten waved her arms energetically. Bye-bye Jackie. She gave the other girl a hug and fist-bumped a confused Fremont. See ya Sabi-chan, Jackie called over her shoulder as the two guests left the farm, Sabo-ten bouncing up and down and waving until they were out of sight. They were nice, Sabo-ten nodded. Papa always said rubes could be nice if you get on their good side. I think you should probably stop calling them rubes, Naruto shook his head as he headed back to the farm. Say Sabo-ten. Hi. The slime girl tilted her head adorably. Have you ever had any strangers come here to attack you because you were a liminal? Naruto glanced at the young girl to see if she looked worried, but she merely screwed her face up in thought for a few seconds before her usual cheerful expression returned. Nope, Sabo-ten swung her arms as she skipped. Plenty of people came to try and take Papa's farm, but I scared them all away. That's a relief, Naruto frowned as the two made their way back to the house, Sabo-ten cheerfully chatting about the plans she had for the farm with Naruto paying barely any attention. This talk of people targeting liminals was worrying to him. Living on a farm with quite a few liminals meant such a group could possibly target them in the future, and while he was confident he could deal with them, he was still concerned for the others. When they entered the house via the kitchen, they saw Chi-Chi strong at work cleaning it. The utility belt that she normally wore on her hip had been replaced by a belt full of cleaning supplies. Currently, she was wiping down the kitchen counter, so lost in her thoughts that she hadn't even heard Sabo-ten and him enter. With a mischievous grin, Naruto approached her quietly and tried his best to eliminate his presence before clearing his throat right next to her. The arachne suddenly leapt backwards with a cry of alarm, before noticing the bemused Naruto and giggling Sabo-ten. She looked away with a blush to compose herself. Handler-san. Chi-Chi took a deep breath. I apologize. I should have been paying more attention. As a host, you deserve my full attention as stated under. It's okay, Naruto cut her off before she could get started. You were strong at work. You know, you don't have to do this. You could just leave the chores to my clones. I don't want to feel as if I am taking advantage of your good nature. The arachne returned her attention to the counter she had been cleaning. I know the others are less than helpful in looking after this house. Naruto laughed weakly. I guess Toph and Kagaya don't really help out that much, but still, you and Sabo-ten do. Papa told me to work strong for my dreams. Sabo-ten declared. He was a wise man. Chi-Chi smiled to try and get on Sabaton's good side. He also said coppers are only nice when they are planning to arrest you and need you to lower your guard to get evidence, Sabo-ten added. That's not always the case, the many-legged girl shook her head softly. Where are the others? Naruto decided to interject before Sabo-ten said something to depress Chi-Chi again. The Arachne sighed and returned her attention to the blonde ninja. Toph is in her room playing pretend, Chi-Chi rubbed her forehead. She's been hopping around fighting imaginary enemies. Kaguya said she wanted to use the computer. Oh. Naruto blinked. Well, she said she wanted to goggle the webs for answers, Chi-Chi smiled, but I got what she meant. Goggling webs. Naruto and Sabo-ten had matching blank expressions. Oh. I forget that since Sabo-ten grew up in the surrounding woods, she probably doesn't have much knowledge of computers and that you're from a different world. She smiled weakly, I apologize if I seemed insensitive. Don't worry about, Naruto laughed, it's just another thing that makes you a vital member of this household. You're the only one who really gets this technology stuff. Thank you, Chi-Chi found herself feeling warm inside. This feeling of being needed, of being relied upon. She enjoyed it. The fact that she could tell Naruto was being honest was also a strange experience for the young woman. Most humans found it awkward to talk to her due to her spider-like body, yet Naruto didn't even seem to notice. He just treated her like she was a normal girl. Don't mention it. Say, I had a few questions if you don't mind. Naruto sat down at the kitchen counter, while summoning a few more clones to start work on preparing some food. Article 21E subsection 3 states that a guest must answer their host's questions unless it conflicts with another law. Plus, I would be happy to answer your questions regardless. The Arachne resumed cleaning as Sabo-ten decided to help her with more enthusiasm than skill. Great, Naruto beamed at her, so I was wondering if you'd heard anything about antiliminal groups. A little, Chi-Chi paused in her work, a small frown on her face. As I have previously mentioned, such a group lived near my village, and although it only happened once, they did burn down a liminal's house. Fortunately, no one was hurt badly. From what I've heard, there have been attacks on liminals, which is why the rule about being no further than 100 yards from their handler was added, to ensure a liminal didn't wander off and get ambushed. I see, Naruto frowned. Still, these all happened in the earlier days of the treaty when it was new and there was plenty of misinformation going around. The Arachne smiled at Naruto. There are a couple of groups that are still antiliminal, though. One of them seeks to get the treaty annulled, but they have so little support that they're largely ignored. There were rumors of a terrorist organization a few months back, but I think that was just a story to sell newspapers. I don't get it, Naruto sighed. I mean, have they even talked to a liminal before? Both you and Sabo-ten are good people. And Toph. Chi-Chi smiled. I don't get why people would want to hurt you. Naruto chose to ignore Chi-Chi's question, much to the larger Arachne's amusement. It goes both ways, much like humans there are liminals who don't want to mingle with humans and think the program is a plot against us. She resumed cleaning while Naruto frowned. Others do have less than stellar motives for joining the program as well. It's stupid, he finally declared. Liminal, human, we are all just people at the end of the day. We should all just get along. That would be nice, Chi-Chi nodded. But even with the laws we have now, they are designed to keep distance between hosts and guests. Yeah, I mean, isn't there a rule saying that you can't be too close or something? He let out a sigh. It's a crime to become intimately involved. Chi-Chi looked away with a soft blush. But what if a liminal and their host falls in love? Isn't there a law saying you can't hurt each other? I'd wager loving someone but not being able to be with them is pretty DMN painful. Naruto shook his head. Speaking from experience? Chi-Chi asked curiously. It's nothing, Naruto sighed and waved his hand dismissively, so Chi-Chi tactfully chose not to continue with her questioning. Do you really think you could fall in love with a liminal, though? Chi-Chi gestured to her spider half. We aren't exactly what your species considers attractive. For example, I am basically part spider, a feature that many humans find unsettling. Don't sell yourself short, Naruto chided her. You have a pretty face and eyes, even if you do have more than a human usually would. So, what if you have lots of legs? To some people that'd be a good thing. Plus, you're a nice person that I'm glad to know. I can easily see how a human could like you. Naruto nodded sagely. Rasengan could probably add a few more reasons to that list. If it was female and had a pretty face, he had all the reasons he needed to try and stuck it. Kurama's voice carried a sort of disdain. Biological functions were messy and complicated to the giant fox, and he was perfectly happy not getting involved in such things. He was fine with relationships, but the added trapping seemed too much like strong and messy work to the proud fox. Oh, Chi-Chi was somewhat taken aback by his honest response. Thank you. How about you? Naruto smiled. Could you see yourself with a human? It would be illegal. Chi-Chi went bright red. But if my heart said yes. I guess. I don't know, it's too soon for me to comment. She suddenly buried her face in her hands, much to Naruto's confusion, but before he could comment there was an angry snarl that snapped Chi-Chi out of her daze. Vulgar spider. Your web is filth. Pure filth. Naruto and Chi-Chi shared a glance before heading to the computer room where a furiously blushing Kaguya was stood with her hand over her eyes and her back to the computer screen. Is everything alright? Naruto blinked. No. This enemy of all morals has tried to corrupt me. Kaguya snapped. I don't understand. Chi-Chi glanced at the computer. I was researching pink slimes, Kaguya remarked. To find their weaknesses. There is little information available. Then I realized none of the images really fitted the monster that attacked us, so I tried the image search, as the vulgar spider had suggested, and searched for pink slime attacks girls with tentacles. Her face went bright red, which when compared to the usual pale nature of her skin was rather impressive. And I got that filth. Naruto and Chi-Chi glanced at the screen that Kaguya was refusing to look at. Oh. Naruto blinked. That is, yeah. Rasengan would probably like that. The picture involved a fairly attractive girl being molested by tentacles. It looked like the kind of thing that Rasengan would have put in his books. Even with his resilience to such material, the explicit nature of the image had his cheeks starting to heat up. He looked away when he became aware of Chi-Chi and Kaguya's pointed looks. Suddenly your interest in keeping Sabo 10 here is explained. Kaguya narrowed her eyes. To think that my servant is such a degraded pervert. Clearly, the vulgar spider has gotten to you. It isn't like that. Naruto shook his head furiously. Honestly. Handler-san, Chi-Chi looked a little concerned. Was your earlier speech about the relationships between liminals and humans related to your unconventional desires? The Erache looked torn between embarrassment and in condescending. To engage in such acts would be in violation of. It's not like that. The ninja protested his innocence repeatedly. You have to believe me. What's going on in there? Sabo 10 cheerfully called from outside the room. Stay out. Naruto and Chi-Chi called in unison, the former quickly shutting the door before turning his attention to the two girls in the room. Yes. It is probably a good idea to keep you apart from that creature. Kaguya narrowed her eyes. The dishonor of having a servant who indulges in such activities would be overwhelming. She shivered and refused to make eye contact with the tearful ninja, her rage being replaced by disgust momentarily, before returning to rage as she caught the obscene image out of the corner of her eye. Now do something about that thing before my servant gets any more ideas. I'm not. You've got to believe me, Chi-Chi. He turned to the long-legged liminal who was unable to meet his gaze. Chi-Chi. He slumped in despair. Not you too. Handler-san. Chi-Chi placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. It's all right. As part of my training, I have read many books on helping criminals rehabilitate themselves. Together I am sure we can help you out. It's not like that. Naruto left the room, a cloud of despair hanging over him. A curious Sabo-ten was waiting outside the door, pouting cutely and tapping her foot. Ah, Aniki. Can I go into the room yet? Oh no. Aniki is sad again. Did someone mention your dead parents? Ah. I mean. Sadness go away. Sabo-ten went to hug him only for Naruto to dodge her clumsy lunge. Aniki? It's probably best you don't get too huggy with me at the moment, Naruto offered her an empty smile before trudging to his room. Aniki? Sabo-ten watched him head to his room. I have to cheer Aniki up. But how? Back in the computer room, Chi-Chi was trying to defend herself against Kagaya's slander, with little more success than Naruto had achieved. How dare you subject me to such filth? Your web is obscene. Kagaya glare threatened to burn through Chi-Chi. The former goddess was radiating an overwhelming aura the likes the Arachne had never witnessed before. She was almost biblical in her overwhelming rage, and Chi-Chi found herself almost believing her claims of godliness. It isn't my web. It's just called the web, but it has nothing to do with Arachne. It's actually a collection of pages that are stored on servers and connected by. Chi-Chi trailed off as she realized that Kagaya's expression not softening in the slightest. I guess that sounds like a lot of made-up nonsense to you. Are you implying that I am too stupid to understand? Chi-Chi was pretty sure she could hear Latin chanting in the background as the sheer force of Kagaya's displeasure started to smother her like some ancient evil that Chi-Chi had unwittingly released from its tomb. Someone must have turned the safe search off. Chi-Chi mumbled, unable to think of anything else to say. Oh, that'd be me, Toph poked her head in, having been attracted by the loud noise and the sight of a sad-looking Naruto dragging his feet along the floor towards his room. So what did you show the boss that put him in such a funk? She glanced at the screen. Ah. I get it. She paused as she saw the image on the screen. Well. I ain't gonna judge ya, copper, but I'm totally judging you right now. Why did you suspect this is my search? Chi-Chi was confused by Toph's remarks. You're far too uptight, so you gotta have some sort of dark secret. Honestly, being into slime pawn would probably be more normal than the weird CRP I was expecting, but I guess it shattered your image as a perfect little goody two-shoes. The boss will never be able to look at you the same again. Toph snorted. Personally, I had imagined you'd be into tying people with your webs and doing all sorts of messed up CRP to M. Kagaya opened her mouth to chastise the toad on her topic of conversation, but Chi-Chi cut her off, eager to defend her honor. I can't make any webs. Chi-Chi frowned. I would imagine that of all people would take care to know the differences between breeds. What's that supposed to mean? Toph narrowed her eyes, trying to work out whether she was being insulted or not. You'd hate to be mistaken for a frog type, right? The Arachne crossed her arms. We're completely different. You couldn't mistake a toad type for a frog type unless you were blind. The bullywug scowled. You Arachne all have loads of legs and fat asses. Plus you all have different markings even in the same breed. My abdomen is the perfect size for my species. The officer in training frowned. And for the record, I am a long-legged type. You must be the useless breed then if you can't even make webs. How the hell are you gonna do all that KNKY stuff like tying people up, N? I don't want to hear this. Kagaya shook her head furiously. Can we just remove this obscenity from my view? Chi-Chi and Toph paused in their argument, silently calling a truce to avoid triggering a cataclysmic response from the already incandescent former goddess. Toph leaned against the door, ignoring Sabaton's, "Please let me in," coming from the other side, while Chi-Chi walked over to the computer and tried to close the image, although for some reason the computer seemed reluctant to respond to her actions. It must have crashed. She paused before turning towards the disinterested toad type. Why would you even remove safe search in the first place? "'Cause I'm a badass," Toph smirked. "I don't need no safe search. A badass thrives on danger." "That's not what it means." Chi-Chi clicked furiously, but somehow accidentally enlarged the image instead, much to the rabbit goddess' displeasure. "You're making it worse, foul cretin." Kaguya jerked her attention away from the screen and stormed out of the room, leaving the door open and allowing the newest addition to the farm to wander inside. "What's going on in there?" Sabo-ten beamed as she walked in. "Oh, are you looking at something?" "It's nothing." Chi-Chi shielded the screen from the young girl. "Let me see." Sabo-ten declared as she tried to peer around Chi-Chi, however her abdomen was shielding the entire screen, a fact that Toph took great amusement in. "It's not for you. Now leave." Chi-Chi made a shooing gesture. "Please. Looks like that fat butt of yours is actually useful for something," the toad type cackled as she left the room with a slight limp, her ankle still not fully healed. Toph. Chi-Chi paled. "I could use your help here." "Help a copper. Fat chance." She snickered as she walked away, cheerfully whistling a tune. Toph. The spider girl watched the toad type walk away, all the while still trying to keep Sabo-ten from seeing the screen behind her. "Please. Get back here and help me." "Toph. Let me see." Sabo-ten frowned as she tried to peer around the arachne. "Is that what made Aniki really sad? Was it your fault?" "It wasn't me." "Well. I suppose I may have played a small part," Chi-Chi paused. "But either way I can't let you see this screen, so please just leave the room. Papa warned me that coppers keep files on innocent people to bully them." Sabo-ten challenged, "I saw a pink slime, so you must have something on me." "That's not true." The arachne shook her head furiously, repositioning her spider half to completely block the screen. "Then show me the image or prove me right." Sabo-ten had a triumphant look on her face. He. Sabo-ten is a MSTR strategist, she added to herself in her loud whisper. I can't do that." Chi-Chi started sweating nervously. Papa was right. Police are all big jerks. Tofne-sama would have let me see it. She's way cooler than you. I'll bet you are the reason that Aniki told me not to hug him. Stupid coppers ruin everything. Sabo-ten stuck her tongue out before running away. Sabaton-chan. Chi-Chi froze as the young girl ran away. She's never going to accept me as a big sister. She slumped her shoulders as the screen finally responded and closed the image. Too little, too late, she thought as she left the room, mirroring Naruto's own exit several minutes earlier. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for more crossovers. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author DJ Unk 101 on fanfiction.net. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.